Celebrity news, and all things happening in the Cayman Islands and around the world. This show was created to give the people a voice and a means of being involved and informed without any filters. Sometimes it gets crazy, but we always keep it real. We bring you the tea, piping hot, so grab your favorite beverage and join the conversation via WhatsApp at 324-1612. Email tips@caymanmarlroad.com. Now, here's your host, Sandy Hill, broadcasting live from the beautiful Cayman Islands. Broadcasting live from the beautiful Cayman Islands.
All right. Good morning. Good morning. Hopefully you guys can hear me. We're having a little bit of a different situation this morning. Let me bring in Blake and Aaron.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Hello.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hello.
Okay, so it is working.
Yes.
Good. Good. We heard the music, the steel pans cutting in and out, so we were
Oh, right.
it wasn't working correctly. So what's this new platform?
Don't even get me.
Are you in Facebook jail?
Halfway. Like I'm in a halfway house.
No, you were halfway in jail.
I know. So it's very bizarre this time. I'm personally not in jail, but yesterday we had the minister on and he requested a song to be played. And I did not realize, the song got me in, not me personally, but right. So I can still post on my own page and whatever, but I can't live stream. And so I've appealed it and it's Sony Records. So they'll probably release it under fair use. You know, the only people that have never, because this happens sometimes, like you play a clip or, you know, you even go to an event and something happens and there's music in the background and they grab it because it's AI intelligence or whatever, I guess. And so every time I peel it, they always say, yeah, okay, fair use. And they release it. Sometimes years later, they're coming like, oh, this is our song, like 3 years later. It's like, really? But once they release it, it's all good. The only people that have never released something was the Compass. And it was a chamber luncheon, which is kind of funny.
What was that noise?
That was my keyboard. Sorry. They just moved.
Oh, it sounds like one of those clown horns.
It was the raccoon, the second raccoon saying, help me. Just kidding.
Oh, poor raccoon. I think if you play like a 20-second clip or under that,
you're okay.
You're okay. Yeah. It's anything longer than that they flag in.
Okay. Well, coming up when we go live, I've got something for us, Sandy. And everyone out there listening.
That's right.
I'm on a pedestal.
Good morning.
Yeah. All right. Just we're getting ready to jump into traffic, and then we'll come live on KISS and on CMR.
But we've got a lot of people so far. I'm looking at saying hi to everyone.
I'm trying to.
Good morning.
The systems. I haven't used this particular one in a while, so I'm trying to remember how do I tell who's online now. This is a throwback to way back.
How many people online right now?
Looks like we got almost 100 in Facebook.
Good morning.
Morning.
Can't tell yet on YouTube.
By the way, just another shout out for Christmas trees on your show. If all your viewers there, if they want a real live Christmas tree, go to christmastrees.ky. Order your tree now; they're on sale.
Blake got you covered.
All righty, I got you covered.
Yeah,
I got you covered. All right, here we go. Stand by, Sandy.
All right, sounds good. Blake and Aaron. Gotta love it. I don't know. This one is a little bit different with the layout. So I'm going to put them in the main screen.
Right, man, taking a first speaker for satellite imagery. We're heading from the eastern districts, Town towards central Georgetown. That's 28 minutes travel time with slowdowns taking place along the spot stretch towards the east-west arterial road intersection, and this will take you slow all the way down towards the airport runway turn. Lidford Pearson bypass, slow commute as well, passing Agnes Way, and if you're from Fairbanks all the way out towards the Cayman National roundabout. Look out for the school buses in the respective school zones. This will obviously cause some more slowdowns as you make your Thursday morning rounds. Usual tip line is open if you see any problems causing delays at 603-4444.
DMS Real-Time Traffic is brought to you by Saxon Insurance. Saxon saves you time and money with online quoting, flexible premiums, and competitive pricing. Get Saxon Insurance. It's the smart thing to do.
Big news. I have some important news for you.
Interesting news.
It's Blake and Aaron's Spilling the Tea with Sandy.
J-Man's top news headlines of the day from CMR.
Good morning, Sandy. How are you?
Hey, morning, Blake and Aaron. How are you guys doing?
We are good. We are good.
Awesome.
Got some numbers from yesterday quickly this time around.
Very good. Yes, I mean, it didn't take too long. And to be honest, the numbers were I thought pretty good. Not really anything exorbitant.
115 new positives.
Yes.
4 in travelers, 111 in the community. 8 people now in hospital, none on ventilators.
Yes, the hospital numbers were a bit confusing because I knew that there was one person that came from the BRAC. So I wasn't quite able to figure out, I think GIS might be chasing that up. Did one get released from the previous numbers and then this one made number 8, or is this one actually number 9? So it's, hopefully we'll get some clarification today on exactly what happened there. Because you can't add 1 to 8 and still have 8. I'm pretty sure I remember that from kindergarten.
Now, we've never really been good at math, Aaron.
I don't know. I'm not really sure how to do that.
Let me just
we should get
I mean, math isn't my strength, but you know what? I was minus
8 or 8 minus 1
all right,
would be 7.
How about here's a math thing for you?
Not 9.
Let's get on to my issue this morning.
Okay.
So my oldest son, his school is it's back today, but they had to be closed yesterday. A teacher tested positive, so they had to do deep cleaning for the whole school. So we did a lateral flow test this morning, negative, so he went back to school. Anyway, Now, the problem that the schools are going to run into, and that my oldest school is running into, they only have enough LFTs, as the slang is, for X amount of days. They're not going to have enough for every student to do one for 10 days straight. So they're going to have to switch to online learning, not because any more positives, but because of supply issues. If they can't get any more. So is that something that the government should be giving to all? I mean, they've already given them some, but they didn't give them enough. Shouldn't the government be supplying enough to all the schools since this is their mandate? What do you guys think?
Here's what I know. Fortunately, the Minister of Tourism and Transport was on the show yesterday morning, and he informed us that there's a huge supply of lateral flow test on the way. So now I need to figure out what on the way means and what huge supply means. So,
and how many are going to the school? Are they going to?
Yeah, these are for kids. I mean, this is all about prioritizing the children first. So I'm just, as a matter of fact,
if we don't have enough, we're going to have to go to online learning, which is not as beneficial for students. I mean, I already know my oldest and I already have fights sometimes trying to get some homework done. Like, can't imagine me being there trying to get him to focus while he's at home and a cat walks by and he's like, no, I'm going to go chase the cat now.
Look, something shiny.
And it only has to do with the fact that he's not positive. Even if he's not positive, obviously there wouldn't be a test to be able to tell why. But anyway, I just find that to be absolutely ridiculous. And they need to get more if they're going to be implementing testing every single day for 10 days. Because my youngest kid they only all had to test once and it came back negative. They were all sent back to school and no more tests.
Yeah. So the short answer is it's on the way. And I'm going to try to figure out when and, what sort of supply, but I understand it's a substantial number. But they had an initial, order of some 2,000 that they'd allocated for the purposes of students, but clearly that just wasn't enough given the outbreak that we've had.
Yeah.
So it's soon come.
Well, I heard that.
I'm sorry, Chantel. That's just if Chantel's saying if you're directly exposed, you should be in quarantine for 14 days. That's the whole island would be in quarantine for 14 days then.
Yeah, those aren't the new rules.
That's everybody. Everybody's directly exposed without knowing it one way or another.
Those aren't the new rules. Actually, the new rules are out for lateral.
So, and we're also trying to get some public health officials on the show to really go through the new rules, because there's been a lot of confusion about the rules and people don't understand and know what the rules are. So I think this comes down to a bit of a communication issue that they really need to get on top of. And the sooner the better. And this is where, for me, the civil service operates in a different way versus private sector. And I think those of us who are in private sector don't always get it, why it takes so long to do something. Like, to me, the second that the lateral flow instructions sent out, the isolation instructions were sent out, they should have, in conjunction with that, understood that there needed to be a media junket that went with that. There should have been no need for the media to be saying to you, you need to come on shows, you need to do X, Y, Z. It's kind of like a no-brainer for me, but apparently it wasn't for them. They thought that everybody would sit down and read an 11-page document and then a 7-page document and understand these flow charts and all this kind of stuff. And, we got to be honest that that's just not going to, work for 75% of the population here. So we have reached out to them, and, I think it's all our responsibility to try to help the civil service get their messages out there as much as we can. And, after 3 days, I finally received a response saying, oh, it's being worked on. And again, I'm like, okay. So hopefully, Aaron, we can get some clarity, and Chantel, and all of these things very, very soon.
Yeah, because that's the thing. It's like, it is everywhere, but it's how do we mitigate it, but also be able to do that. I think the lateral flow test thing is a great idea, but we need enough.
Has the school told you that they don't have enough?
Yes.
Oh, they have.
They have enough, and that emails all going around are. Unfortunately, it's out of our control is the supply of LFTs on island. We are critically short. After speaking with colleagues in other schools on island, we have managed to borrow enough tests to get us through to the end of this week.
Oh, okay.
And now we hope that there will be a large shipment on island either tomorrow or Saturday, which should mean that we'll have enough for next week. However, we do want to prepare you that in the instance that we are in a 10-day surveillance period, there are not enough LFTs on island to carry out the required daily tests. We will have to move to temporary remote learning until the island is restocked.
So this is directly from the school.
Yes, and so it should, but that's because they're following government guidelines. Yeah. And I think it's better this way that everyone's testing, so that so if they are positive, they stay home. It does help.
And Sandy, we were talking earlier. Do you so when you happen upon a weekend, are you supposed to be testing on the weekends?
I mean, I would think so.
I mean, do you test your kid at home on Saturday and a Sunday morning, or do you just wait till Monday to see if?
Well, I mean, I would, depending on what you're doing in that weekend, I would probably say continue testing especially if you're considering.
The thing is, why would you waste them though?
Well, if you're going out in public.
If you're going out, I get that. But if you're like, you know what, we're pretty much at home, you're not going to waste it because you're like, well, I need it for school. And in the case of using them over the weekend, if that means then shutting 2 days of the school day down, it's not going to happen. I'm just telling you, people are not going to do it.
By the way, we have the governor on our show on Monday, so these are good questions we can ask him.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that he's gonna. We're actually going to be speaking with him on Friday, and I don't know that these are the technical questions that he's really even equipped to answer. He's more of, policy and stuff with the UK and that sort of thing. But I mean, it'll definitely be interesting, I think, to inquire about. But there's a lot more that has to be done for sure. And I had someone message me this morning and they said the single complaint that they have is one of communication. They said that there is definitely a communication issue here, communication being their Achilles heel, and they do nothing to help is the response that this person sent me this morning, and why they're feeling a little bit uncertain. And I said, I agree with that, but the question is who is failing at the communication? And it's not who you think, but of course it makes everybody look bad.
Yeah.
So that's it. And in other breaking news this morning, we actually did have an incident over the weekend. There was an armed robbery at 7 Mile Beach, West Bay Road area at about 1:50 in the morning, where 3 people robbed at knife point by two suspects.
Just on the road, like.
It seems like they were just maybe walking. Yeah. So three people robbed at knife point by 2 suspects. One male received minor injuries to his hand, and the suspects fled the scene in a vehicle. So
they were driving around and saw people and said, "Let's go."
Yeah. So we're waiting to get some more details on that. So that's a CMR and 106 exclusive this morning.
That's kind of terrifying.
It is.
Yeah. Generally that's pretty safe area, and probably out for a night with some friends, walking home at 1 a.m. Not
driving, walking home.
Yeah. Not expecting, anything to go wrong.
Yeah.
So do we know what they were robbed of?
We haven't heard. No.
Just valuables.
Yes.
Yeah.
Look, there's always been opportunistic criminals out there. Just scary.
All right, Sandy. Well, I can't say catch you on Facebook, right? Can I?
No, we're on Facebook.
You're on Facebook. Okay.
Yeah, we got a couple hundred people tuned in to Facebook. So.
All right, got it.
Yeah, we're there.
CMR live on Facebook and YouTube, and we'll see you tomorrow for the Friday show.
Awesome. Oh, what year are we doing tomorrow?
I haven't decided.
Oh, okay. Well, WhatsApp me later on when you think about it.
Do you want to throw out a year right now? I'm open to suggestions.
Oh gosh, I always forget what years you've done.
How about throw out a song real quick?
Oh,
what song do you want to hear out of? Like, just
that's hard.
Think of a song and then I'll Google the year, and then we'll go with that year.
Oh my God, that's
hard. Name a song.
Yeah, just give me a year.
Name a U2 song.
1985. Have we done that one recently?
85. All right.
That was the year my sister was born.
All right, we'll do 85. That's fine.
All right.
85 it is.
Okay. See you guys tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
All right.
All right. CMR is.
So, folks, 1985. Send me some song selections. Aaron, good morning. Says, I'll ask. Ask who about what? Do tell us. Diamond Princess. Yeah, we need some clarity. And you know what? What I'm thinking we're going to do is we are actually going to just pull out the 7 and 11 page document and go through it ourselves. I mean, I can't wait much longer, to be honest. Monday, today's Thursday. I kind of feel like we should just do that. But this platform that I'm using this morning, I'm not that used to anymore. I used to use this initially, and I haven't used it in quite some time. So this wouldn't be the day for me to like try to figure out screen sharing and all that kind of stuff, to be honest. So let's hopefully tomorrow we'll be back on the regular back end platform, and we can get that sorted out. Let me see. Okay. So good morning to everyone. How is everyone doing? All good? Yes, let's get it. Kevin, we didn't quite get to finish our conversation with Kevin Watler this morning, but I will see if he is available this morning to join us. So we had a comment earlier. Oh yes, Richard said, what a way to start my day, hearing the national song of my beautiful homeland, how I miss it. Yes. And the steel pans, like the national song, I think in that version is so impactful. But I'm still looking for like an audible version of it as well. So if you know of any good ones, let me know. A lot of people have recommended those siblings, the quartet. I forget what the Williams Quartet, I think is what they're called. And I've not been able to find a version of the song with them that's like online and available. So if anyone has one, do let me know. So yes, we're going to be speaking to the governor, folks, on Friday. So if you have any questions in relation to the governor, do send them through. I'm going to suggest that you send them through on WhatsApp, 324-1612, because sometimes I see messages here and then I forget what the messages were. So I do see Carol's asking about the BA flight bringing lateral flow test. I know for sure that they're on the way. I think the premier is back on island today as well. And we can talk a little bit about his Glasgow trip. Are they calling it COP26 or just COP26? But it was a climate change forum that over 100 leaders worldwide actually went to. So it was extremely interesting. So we can talk a little bit about that. And big shout out to Mr. Kenneth Bryan, who did come on the show yesterday, spent quite a bit of time with us. And I think that these things are helpful. And I think that, you know, one of the reasons why we created Impact Wednesdays is to give the government an opportunity to come on and do have a word with us and tell us what's been going on. I thought it was a very interesting show from a number of different perspectives. So I think that, you know, we heard his just being human. We heard his concerns, obviously, about trying to juggle his new job, juggle his new position of being a minister, which that's a lot of responsibility. And actually, I see Kevin, just give me 1 second, being a minister and actually being continuing to be a representative at the grassroots level that he was used to. And what I want to say about that is the difficulties that he's experiencing, you know, are to be expected. I think that what happens is most politicians do not know how difficult it is. You know, they're like, oh yeah, it's going to be hard, but I've got support. I've got the silver. And it's like, it is a lot harder than you think. And I have a sense, not because I've personally experienced it, but I have been close enough to the situation. I've analyzed the situation enough where I really get an idea of what it takes. And this is why I have always said, if you guys listen to me, I do not diverge from this, is I feel that it is a mistake for a first-time MP in particular, who may not have all of the elements of their constituency platform down pat, trying to do both. because you have no experience being a representative of the people. Now you have that full plate, and then you've got the full plate of being a minister as a first-time MP. It hasn't worked out well for most people, I got to tell you. I'll bring Kevin in now because maybe he's got some interesting thoughts on this. Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
Good morning, Sandra. How are you? And good morning,
good.
everyone in Cayman.
Beautiful, beautiful. Would you like to be in the big picture or the small picture?
Yeah, this one looks a lot different.
Yes, it is. It is. This was the first system that I used to use, believe it or not, and then I swapped to the other one, and now I'm so used to that one that this one looks very foreign.
Yeah.
And I do prefer the other one now that I'm looking at it. Yes, good morning to Miss Dawn. Thank you so much for tuning in this morning. So, Kevin, I'm sure you would have heard some of the comments from, the minister yesterday. What were your thoughts in terms of what he had to say?
I actually missed most of it because I had a meeting. And so I only caught like maybe the first couple of minutes, but then I had to jump off and do what I'm paid to do here. So even though I tried my best to stay in touch and hear what's going on there, I do have to prioritize my paid job. So
yeah, for sure. Well, he was talking about some of the struggles of being a minister, and I heard him say that he's like, so many people have expectations of him. And I thought this was a very vulnerable moment for the minister that I appreciated. He said, that maybe some people think he's going to fail as minister. And I think that pressure is real. And so, he is determined not to fail as a minister. So he's doing everything in his power, going to work, working a full day and then some. But, he knows that people are thinking, well, at the constituency level, what is happening and what's going on. And I think it's a juggling act, no matter how much experience you've had. To make sure that you have got both down pat. And I think the difficulty, and Kevin, you can let me know what your thoughts are, is that when you have things happening at the constituency level, you've got to have superb support. I mean, I suppose in the ministry, you've got chief officers, you've got a PA. Some of them, I think, now have several PAs. I think the ministers have 2 PAs. And we live in a community where people expect to have access to their representatives, probably unlike most other places in the world. Like, you want to think that you can message your MP on the phone, and every time you call him, he or she must answer your phone call. And to me, that's a little bit crazy when you think about how many constituents people have. And not only that, but you've got non-constituents calling you and asking you to do stuff for them and help them solve problems and questions and queries. And, it's a lot. And a lot of it is all about, it's like you're managing a company in a sense. You've got to have good support. You've got to have a good support team in place. And I think that also you've got to be extremely organized. Like, you've got to have, you got to be on top of your game when it comes to organization. And there's so many events and things that MPs are expected to attend and to be at that a lot of people don't understand that those things also take time. Preparing, even if they have other people write their speeches, which some of them do not like to do. They still have to review speeches and go over information and keep up with what's happening in their different areas of responsibility in terms of at the ministerial level. So it's a lot. So I see that Kevin's just on a call. I'm just going to pull him out really quickly. So yeah, I mean, it is a lot. And I do appreciate, the minister sharing that with us, because I thought that was a vulnerable moment, but we all have them. And it shows that he's human and he cares about succeeding, which I think is very, very important. And, for the people, I think that, you have a good representative, but you also have to be realistic about what your expectations are. And I kept using this term yesterday about how it's important to manage expectations. And as someone who's been a business owner now for almost 20 years, and I have, also done a lot of professional development training. So I train other people, supervisors and others, about certain things. And one of the biggest downfalls, I think, of any organization, internally and externally, is the fact that you have not properly managed expectations of your clients, whether it's internal clients or third-party clients. And if you've not done that, and people expect this up here. By the way, do you guys notice my little, I've got some tape on my arm today trying to help with the, it's super painful, trying to help with this tennis elbow. But anyway, if your expectations are all the way up here and then someone's delivering all the way down here, of course you're going to feel disappointed. And it's not necessarily a question of you're going to feel disappointed because this person has actually failed you. It's because there's a mismatching of your expectations with what they're going to deliver. One of the ways that you help to manage expectations, folks, is you simply communicate. You tell people, hey, this is what you're going to be getting. This is what I'm going to be delivering. And I think you need to be real with people. And we do it all the time. Like I said on this show, and I tell you, this is what, for me, the cold, hard truth means. Maybe for somebody else, the cold, hard truth is not as cold and not as hard, and they expect me to be a little bit softer or whatever, but once you get it, and you understand what I'm saying, and that happens through communication, right? It's like any relationship is built on a good, solid foundation of communication. And if you're failing at the communication game, then you've got a problem. Kevin, what are your thoughts, generally speaking, about just trying to work in the public service, manage people's expectations? Of course, you're there as well, working every single day. You've got your management team that's probably expecting certain things of you. You've got the people out there who are expecting certain things of your department and so on. How do you find that you're able to juggle all of these things, really?
No, it's certainly not easy. And I definitely have to say, I know Kenneth, I've known Kenneth for a very long time, and I know the type of person that he is and the love he has for his people. Everyone in the Cayman Islands is his people, not just his constituents. And he's just like you, Sandra. He's like me when it comes to, we're going to stay up and burn the midnight oil. We're going to do whatever it takes, no matter how long it takes, to try to help as many people as we can. We just have that type of, that's just the way we're made. Yeah. And so it is incredibly difficult to be able to manage all of that, because you also got to appreciate and understand that he has to have some downtime. He has to spend some time with his family if he wants to stay married and be a father to his children. So, I mean, those things are very, very difficult to manage. And especially at a time, it's hard enough if we didn't have a pandemic. Exactly. We are in the middle of a pandemic, and our elected representatives are working a whole lot more, because they're not just managing all of the things that they would have been busy managing, but they're also managing something that takes up significant time with something that's still fairly new. I mean, the pandemic has not been around for a very long time. Yes, we do know a whole lot more about COVID than we did in the very early days. And Cayman's really in a much better position than the majority of the world, because we've been able to watch the mistake of other people, but there's still a lot of things that need to take place and go on behind the scenes from the government level that takes up a significant amount of time. You got to understand as well too that our elected representatives are not public health experts, and so they are going through a crash course in dealing with government responding to a pandemic, and so they're now expected to be experts and try to make the best decision with so many different views that are out there, because everyone has a different opinion on really how to manage dealing with the situation and trying to work together. Remember, this is unlike all of the governments throughout my entire lifetime, and probably in the history of the Cayman Islands. We have a very unique type of government right now, where it's not whatever the leader of the party says. This is a lot of collaboration, a lot of different opinions that have to be discussed. And so that does take up a whole lot more time. And in my opinion, that's actually really good, because it forces people to talk, not just go along with the rhetoric that was always, because this is what the leadership of the party said. Absolutely. This is the way we're going to go. They're actually forced to talk amongst themselves and take the time to listen to everyone, and then collectively agree to move forward from there. So there's a lot of stresses that has to go on. That just takes up a significant amount of time.
Yes. And I mean, I agree with you in terms of that as well, is that the type of government that we have, the PAC government has formed a collaborative government. which is different. You know, you don't have someone who, as you rightfully said, has come in dictating what's going to happen. People just necessarily follow along. Obviously, there is a leadership structure, but I think that means that there's a lot more collaboration that's actually happening. I think I know this in real terms as well on the back end, that they tend to, you know, communicate a bit more. And that's why the leader of the PAC government, the Premier, Mr. Panton, has spent a considerable amount of time doing like workshops with his group. And you have probably for the first time the largest amount of new MPs that are actually ministers as well. And so that learning curve is extremely steep. And this is where I feel like we could be so much more gracious towards them. I get that we have a lot of expectations, and I've seen some comments sometimes that I really have to question. Like there was one the other day about Sabrina Turner, for example, saying, oh, you know, Sabrina hasn't, because when we posted that Mr. Brian was coming on the show, somebody commented on that saying, oh, Sabrina hasn't been on the show. And I said, actually, she was on October I think the 2nd or the 6th. She was on Impact Wednesdays. So I'm like, you know, for someone who's obviously not listening to the show to then make a comment that thousands of people could see and jump in on, like, yeah, she hasn't been on the show. What has she been doing? But the comment
and she's recently been on the CMR COVID Spotlight on October 26th.
It's completely inaccurate. Exactly. And this is where, as Caymanians, we oftentimes will just throw things out there, guilty as charged. We will throw things out there without taking the time to really, number one, verify the accuracy of what we're saying, and number two, maybe even consider that if it isn't accurate, well, what's the impact on that individual. So yeah, that wasn't a true statement at all. And I took the time. I mean, I could have just glossed over it and be like, whatever, this is politics. But I took the time to respond to that person and said, hold on a second now. Not only has she been on Impact Wednesdays within the last month, 3 weeks really, but she's also been on, as you rightfully said, in her ministerial capacity, the CMR COVID Spotlight, talking about what her ministry is doing in preparation of the borders reopening. So when people say to me that, oh, the government isn't communicating and they're not listening, in my mind, I also wonder, not that they're not listening, but they're not communicating with the people. I often wonder, are the people actually listening as well? You know, so I said to someone just this morning, they're like, oh, you know, I'm hearing that the borders we're gonna go into lockdown. I'm like, where are you getting that from? Because just a couple of days ago, the leader of this country said that is a false rumor, and he's imploring people who are spreading this rumor to please stop, because it's very harmful when you put that type of a rumor out there. And we know the source of, you know, the community groups that these rumors get started in, and they're not true, but a lie will circulate this island like wildfire, whereas the truth doesn't really normally have a leg to stand on, which is kind of sad when you think about it, right?
And this is where you touched on this, Sandra, initially, where I don't believe it's a failure of the government to not communicate, because I do believe they are communicating. But what the failure really is a lot of the communication that is not coming out there from the team that is supposed to be putting out that communication. There's been times that I'm still waiting. 2 weeks ago, I've asked for, actually almost 3 weeks ago, I've asked for some data, and I'm still waiting on it, waiting on whatever approval it has to get. I think that's where the failure is, because this is the communication that needs to be coming out a whole lot more. And I would say, okay, if the way I will do it here and the way I have done it here, because again, the communication is quite confusing and not everyone's watching at the same exact time. You have to keep on repeating the same information, so you're making sure that communication gets out. But what needs to happen, and I really want it to happen, because again, I got people in my own family that is confused. I'm still confused about some of the information because it's not very clear. So what needs to happen is having people, and it does not have to be the politicians. The politicians, you know, they're the ones creating some of the policies, but we could have some of the boots on the ground, some of the other folks that are in there.
And that's who it should be, actually.
Absolutely, because they're the ones doing a lot of the groundbreaking work. And so what needs to happen is daily, or at least very frequently, if not daily, we're talking about every couple of days, coming out doing virtual town halls. Because again, we don't want to encourage large crowds, because we know that's how the virus is spreading, but we need to absolutely have town halls and stuff, whether it's virtual, having people come on and listen to some of the tips, have Q&A sessions, just like how we have the CMR COVID Spotlight, where people could ask the questions to the experts. But the experts that I'm bringing on primarily, these are experts from around the world who can't necessarily answer the policies and the different recommendations in the Cayman Islands. I could certainly tell you that some of the things that we have done here in the state of Florida, which is who I am the spokesperson for, is a lot different than some of the ways the government have made their decisions and the policies that are in place for the Cayman Islands. So the guidance is going to be a little different because we're following a little bit of a different model. In fact, I believe Cayman is following a much more public health mindset type of model that I definitely admire, but there is certain things about it that needs to be clearer, because people might be going to the FDA or the CDC's website and getting information that is different than what the UK's advice might be and what the Cayman Islands advice may be. And then that's just confusing the message, especially when you have different community groups that is out there sharing a lot of different information. And it's the whole entire thing is just confusing. So as the authority who is in charge of that communication, what needs to happen is frequent local updates from those who have those answers coming out and making sure that they, again, share that information. Because ultimately people are confused. People need to know. It's not that some people may not want to follow it. We're going to have those people. We're going to have people that are not taking personal responsibility. We're going to have people that are not going to be listening to the advice that is being given. We know that. But ultimately, there's a lot of people, and again, people in my own family who I just spoke to up to this morning, who are asking me questions. Kevin, can you let me know X, Y, and Z? Well, I really don't know. I mean, I know how it's done here, but Cayman does have a little different way of doing it, and I'm not sure how they're handling it. So they need to make sure that they improve the communication. They said, oh yeah, we're going to be doing better. I heard one of the parts I did hear yesterday from Minister Bryan was he said that, yeah, we're going to improve the communication. Well, I also heard that a month ago, Sabrina Turner said on a press conference that they're going to be improving communications. Well, it's not necessarily for the government officials to do that. It's now for the communication team to step up and lead that effort. We have government information services. We have, through the cabinet office, again, another communication structure for public health. We need to see those people coming out to the forefront, giving that information out to the public. I know that they might not like me saying that, but I have also offered my advice and tips to them already and said, this is how I recommend you do it. You need to have some more information. Unfortunately, I mean, I'm not in that position where I have the ability to force them to do it, but I could at least share my professional opinion because that's what I do here.
Yeah. And I mean, Kevin, we accept that, especially for elected officials, they may not be communications experts, right? I mean, it requires them to wear a lot of different hats. And I think that people expect, as Deep Blue Sea says, some of the voters want to be babied and cuddled by their MPs. Therefore, they get upset like little children when their MP doesn't answer in the first ring. That is an expectation that is partly the fault of MPs who have been in there for donkey years, who have helped to develop that reputation. But it's also something that is difficult to control when you live in such a small community where everybody knows everyone, and MPs, they go to the same grocery stores that we do. They don't have people, grocery shopping for them. Like, they're entrenched in the community. And in some ways that is very, very, very beneficial because, those who are in the trenches know exactly what it feels like. But this belief that we have untethered access to them 24/7 sort of thing, we can just show up at their doorstep and ask them to help pay your bills and to solve, or, I kind of was joking yesterday about, solving your marital problems. Like, some people go to their MPs for every single thing. And there is that expectation, right? That the MPs, and they try to be there for people, but I think that sometimes maybe they need to pull it back a little bit. Again, manage expectations through communication and say that it's not appropriate for me to do this, but this is what needs to happen. Even we were talking about yesterday how some people in the community feel like MPs should be helping them get a job in government. And I keep saying to people, MPs don't do that. And the first thing they say to me is, well, Alden's government did it, or this other government did it. And I said, well, if they did, they're not supposed to be doing it, right? And, that is a problem that I think needs to be rectified. But when you talk about, Kevin, the communications team And I know that there's numerous teams, and I think people don't get that there's not necessarily a central team. Like right now, we have a team that falls under the cabinet office. I think that they're newly formed. And I don't know how their role really is any different than the GIS team. And again, this is some clarity, even as someone who's in media, like if I don't know that, maybe that's something that probably needs to be explained to the general public. Like, are there certain things that they're responsible for as communications team that GIS doesn't do versus CIGTV? Like, there's all these different communications arms that we don't really understand how they work together, how the parts fit together. And so sometimes I send the question and I'm sending it to the wrong people. Like I did that yesterday. I sent it to Travel Cayman, and Cassandra at Travel Cayman said, actually, that's not my responsibility. That is the responsibility of, who did she say? Was it public health? I can't even remember. But, you know, sometimes there isn't a whole lot of clarity about, okay, who exactly is responsible for this or this or this? And again, that's part of educating the public in terms of what they need to know and what they need to understand. But communication is key. I mean, I can't say it enough. And you have people who might be communications majors and, you know, they have it on paper, but I don't know how much in the real world they've actually dealt with, communications, and most importantly, in a crisis situation. So this is not the norm. And we accept that. We accept that COVID has turned the entire world upside down, topsy-turvy. And this isn't what some people have no experience in crisis management, no experience in crisis communication. And the one thing that I would say to the civil service is their response time needs to be a little bit quicker than what it is. I think, you know, they've gotten used to, even as media, oh, you send a question, oh yeah, we'll get around to it whenever we feel like it. You know, we've got 30 days to do an FOI request. And sometimes I say to them, you know, if I send you a question, it shouldn't necessarily be assumed that, oh, this is going to be FOI, especially if I don't say it's an FOI. It's just a media question. And you should seek to get that turned around within like 24 hours. Like, give people, again, manage my expectations. When are you going to respond by? And some of them simply don't do it. Like, there's a government agency right now. Tomorrow will be a week that I'm waiting for them to send me a report that somebody else requested. So it's just a matter of re-forwarding it because somebody else requested it through the FOI channels. I know that somebody else has requested it through the FOI channels. So I'm just saying to them, I've had other questions. So I can appreciate maybe those other questions might take a minute. But all I'm saying is, number one, I would like that FOI previously requested FOI details. Just forward it to me. That's all you got to do. And here we are a week later and I still don't have that forward. To me, it's a little bit mind-boggling how long the system takes. And I think it's the people in the system. I know, Kevin, you've had these frustrations. Oh, yeah. You email people.
So this is my experience. I have been on both sides. I was a journalist at Cayman 27 for nearly a decade. Yes. So I've had that experience on the other side, dealing with taking care of the needs of journalism, being a reporter. I did that for a number of years. Again, just about a decade before I left, and then I relocated to Florida. And then when I left to Florida, I've been here for about almost 6 years now. 5 years, going on to 6 next year, where again, I'm on the opposite side. I'm not a journalist now. I am now a government spokesperson. I started off in the public safety domain for Polk County government, and now I work for the state of Florida. And I'm assigned to the Department of Health, and I'm the spokesperson for the health department. So I know completely the both sides. I know what it takes and the needs for the journalism side, but I also know the needs when it comes to the bureaucratic red tape of working as a civil servant, as a government worker, from at the county level, which is more of a local government, to a statewide government. I got all of those things where I've been dealing with. And so I completely understand on the government side, the government communication side of things, where there's a lot of red tapes, a lot of politics that is involved with trying to get different messages out. But I'm going to say how I do it. I am hired as the communication expert for the department. And so I have built relationships with my leaders and say, hey, okay, so you've trusted me in this role, and we really need to get this out. I am monitoring the news. I am monitoring the emails that are coming in and the complaints that are coming in, and I'm getting briefed by my my phone center operations, and I'm listening to all of the public's feedback because I'm the one that connects the two. That's my job. And so I'm listening to all of the different views and the different complaints. And so I'm going and briefing my leaders and saying, hey, this is spiraling out of control. We need to get in control of this communication. We need to take a little bit of a strategic communication approach in order to address some of these concerns, because ultimately you're going to look bad if you don't, as well as we really need to clarify some things because people are saying different things. I'm going to tell you that one of the reasons I approach you, Sandra, and approach others to say, hey, we really need to get more accurate information out regarding COVID, because I'm seeing the disinformation, the misinformation and the disinformation spreading way too quickly. It's spreading like wildfire. We need to do something to try to counter that with accurate information. So I said, listen, I got access to a lot of experts out there because of my role here. So I want to make sure that I am bringing these experts to share the accurate information, share the real information that we are observing in a place that is definitely dealing with it, so we could prepare the people that I love, everyone in the Cayman Islands. And so, Sandra, you were like, absolutely, let's get this done. And so we started doing it. That shouldn't be someone that's tasked with something else. I work for the state of Florida. That's who pays my bills. It shouldn't be on to someone to come and try to do that. I'm not seeing a lot of communication coming out of public health, other than once in a while you see a little thing posted on their Facebook and YouTube page of a little PSA update. That's not the way to communicate something like this. There is a small segment of the population that's going to serve. There's a lot more that needs to be done than the platform that you and I are doing, Sandra, on CMR COVID Spotlight. That's not going to reach everyone because, well, frankly, there's some people that will not watch CMR because they don't like you. I mean, that's just a fact. There's going to be other people out there that don't have access to be able to watch something like this. So there's going to be other ways of communicating that needs to happen, and that should be led by the public health communication folks, or if there's one or two people maybe assigned to that role. What we do here, reassign some people that might not be as busy, because what's the priority? Right. The priority is responding to a public health threat. And so we want to make sure that we're reallocating the resources. I mean, they do it all the time in other government agencies when they have to, sequester someone to a different role temporarily or whatever. I mean, reassign some of the communication folks that they have there in order to respond to the communication needs of the current public health that we have going on in the Cayman Islands. So yeah, it might, and this is what we've done here in the state of Florida and in the county that I work in. When the pandemic got really, really, really bad and we were dealing with a lot of cases, we formed what we call a JIC, which is a Joint Information System or Center. And so what that did is allowed us to stagger some hours. And because, we have people on shift work, communication does not go to sleep after 5 o'clock. So we formed 12-hour shifts. So we're running 24 hours to ensure that we have coverage at all times and pushing out different information at different times in order to meet the needs of the people in our communication. Now, did we do everything right? Absolutely not. There were a lot of things that we could have improved on, which is why after we look at things, we have an after action report to kind of look, okay, what went well, what didn't go so well, so we could figure out how better to respond to the situation in the future. So these are things in crisis communication that is necessary. That's, I am a FEMA certified advanced public information officer, so I do have a little bit more training than some of the other communication folks that are out there. At the same time, I don't know it all. And there are people that are still way above what I do. And I continuously learn every single day because the learning never ends. And the way we communicate is always evolving. And we have to keep up to date on the changes as it goes on. So again, communication certainly has to improve in the Cayman Islands. I am not impressed at all, one bit. I am more than willing to take my time and volunteer and help as many folks that I could try to help and coach, because my ultimate goal, is to ultimately protect as many lives as possible. And in communication, again, this comes out of the FEMA training that I've gone through, is that When we communicate, it's all about the right message from the right person at the right time, because ultimately that is what saves lives. And that's what we want. And so I might not be the right messenger at all times. It could be someone else. It could be you. It could be Tom, Dick, Harry down the road. It could be a local minister. It could be whomever. It doesn't matter who it is. But that right message.
And the delivery of the message has to be the top priority. And I think that, Kevin, sometimes, and I love that you've shared how you've been on both sides of this now. And so you understand from the inside a lot of the red tape that is involved. And someone has just sent a message on WhatsApp who's keenly listening to the program. And they've said, Sandra, the problem with our system is that over the years, the civil service has run the government and merely gives lip service to the politicians. I think that that's very, very interesting. And I think there's so much red tape within the civil service for them to make any sort of a decision that sometimes I wonder how they get anything done at all. Like, I've spoken to them and I'm like, okay, this is what we'd like to do. Da, 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 da. And they're like, okay, I'm going to get back to you in that. Like, I've sat down and had 3-hour, meetings about delivery options. And, it's just amazing how you can be on the same page, right? This is what our expectations are. Sure, not a problem. This is how we can deliver. This is what we can do, etc. And 6-7 months later, the needle hasn't moved. And when you follow up with them, it's because, oh, well, I don't know how to work my brain around how to go back to the powers that be and get this approved. And to me, it's just like, how difficult can that be? And this is where I think the civil service in particular needs to have some degree of flexibility and also some degree of maturity. What has worked, even in the world of communications 10, 15, 5 years ago, isn't what is being deployed and how it's working like now. That's why as a media house in 4 years, we have been able to come and dominate the Cayman market. You know why? Because we weren't trying to copy what other people are doing. And so much so that made other people upset. People were uncomfortable with CMR and how we did stuff and how we delivered the news and whatever. But that uncomfortableness really pushed people into, you know what, this is a new mode of communication. I mean, we were all about social media as our number one delivery method. And I'm still shocked to see that the majority of the news media in Cayman, most things go up on their website, don't even end up on social media. They're not communicating with people on social media. This is where people are at, and it boggles my mind how long it takes people to adapt to new things, adapt to new technology. I remember before I even started the show, I had approached Wendy Ledger and I said, Wendy, let's do a collaborative show together. And she was like, oh yeah, but Sandy, I don't have time. And that kind of thing is like for you young people. And I'm like, well, I'm not all that young, but if you just don't understand that the times have changed and you need to do things differently and you need to meet people where they are, then you'll just never get it. Kevin, another thing is we all use instant messaging to communicate with each other. I mean, you and I are in communication all day. You need to tell me about a guest. Yes, you might send the occasional email, but 99% of our communication is going to be on WhatsApp. And I even said to, minister recently, I said, why don't you, they all have government phones. They also have their personal phones. I said, why are you not taking your government phones, right, and setting those up as the official means of people reaching and communicating you? They shouldn't really be messaging you on your personal phone. Now, I get that a lot of them have your personal phone number and they've had it for donkey years and whatever, but you need to push out your government issued phone, because that's what it's for. Push out your government issued phone number, advertise it widely, make sure that everybody has it, and put people in that direction. This is how you need to contact, if you want to contact the premier, if you want to contact the Minister of Finance, this is how this person is to be reached. Most people don't even know what those phone numbers are. I bet you right now there are people listening going, oh, I didn't know they had a separate phone number. Of course they do. And this is how things should be properly organized in terms of their constituency offices and so on. And then they need to have someone actually manning the phone. So yes, have people answering that phone on behalf of the representative. Have people on the WhatsApp, which you can install on your computer, responding to messages. So as you message, and by the way, here's a little tech tip for you. There's such a thing called WhatsApp Business. And WhatsApp Business is still free, and it allows you to do certain things that the regular WhatsApp doesn't allow you to do. So if you are an MP, you could utilize a tool like WhatsApp Business to do automated messages. Here's an example. Somebody messages you on a Tuesday. Your automated message could say, thank you for contacting Premier Panton. I'm in caucus or cabinet all day today. All Tuesdays, I'm in cabinet. And then you're going to go, okay, the Premier's in cabinet. I know he's not going to respond to me. It's managing expectations and using the available tools that we have, right? Another great example is, people will send you messages, and I've made this mistake, Kevin, I'm sure you have as well. You read the message, but you don't really read it. Like you glance over it and it doesn't sink in. You know how many times I've been like, oh, Kevin, did you send me this link, Google Drive, whatever? And you're like, yep, Sandy, I sent it already 2 days ago.
Didn't happen just yesterday when you missed the data that came out in the release the night before it came out when you were in the middle of the show. That's a classic example of it, where when they gave the data of the percentage of unvaccinated versus vaccinated, and so I sent it to you. Hey, this data's here, and I thought you saw it because it showed that you read it. And I even highlighted just that portion. But the next morning, when Blake and Aaron was talking to you in the morning, they highlighted you. Like, oh, they sent that out. I'm like, yeah, Andra.
I was actually going to message. Christina and said, why didn't I get this? And I said, you know what? Let me go back and double check my emails. And sure enough, there it was. It came in like 7 something, whatever. I just totally missed it. And this happens because we get so many emails and so many WhatsApp messages. Like literally, there are days that I will get easily 50 WhatsApp messages, like people and sometimes it's just people in the news group responding to, oh my gosh, that's unbelievable. Not something that I necessarily need to respond to, but I still need to like read it to kind of clear it out of my notifications. And that's one of the things why I love WhatsApp on the desktop, is because I can quickly scroll down and go through all the messages and see, exactly what's going on. And there are times that, listen, I'm going to launch I don't even know what I'm going to call it yet, Kevin. You'll have to help me think of a name for this. But the Help Me Howard concept, I need a name like that. Save Me Sandy or something, because every single day, the number of messages that I get from people, phone calls, oh, Miss Sandy, I've got something to tell you. Like, I swear people think I'm an MP. People think I'm an elected official. And I get that I'm in that space where I can help people. I had one young lady call me on Tuesday morning, right before midday. And she said to me, I went to the police station. This is what's going on. Abuses as it relates to these quarantine facilities. The police were unable to help her. And she told the police, well, I'm going to go to Sandy because I know she can get stuff done. And I was like, that's so funny. But, because people have this impression that we do get stuff done here on CMR, a lot of people, are reaching out to me, and I certainly don't mind helping people, but even sometimes my response isn't as quick as people would like. I've got to be like, hold on. I know your thing is a priority, but keep in mind that I'm running more than one business, right? So I can make sure my bills get paid, just like Kevin. You got full-time jobs, you got stuff you're doing. CMR is only relevant if we stay on top of the stuff that's actually happening, the breaking news, or this, that, whatever, right? So I'm trying to help consumers. I'm trying to be a mediator to try to get all this stuff done, but it takes time. It takes messaging people. It takes phone calls. It takes following up with government, trying to give them the opportunity before I put them on blast to rectify situations and to get stuff done. Because my objective here isn't to sit here all day and put everybody in blast without any solutions. That is the easiest thing to do in the world, right? I come up with all these fanciful ideas of, oh, this is how we solve the country's problems. That's easy, because I don't even know if, in terms of a real world application, if any of those things are going to be meaningful, if they're going to work. It's a different situation for me to actually get to work and email people, email Lizette, email the Premier, email ministers, email other civil servants, contact the prison director and say, hey, I'm getting a lot of complaints about your COVID infection rate and what's going on. Here are 5 or 10 questions that I have so that I can understand from your perspective what's happening, because I'm hearing the one perspective from prisoners and their family members, but I'm trying to get a more balanced perspective so that I can address the issues instead of just coming out here with a big mouth and like lambasting everyone and making everybody look bad. So a lot of people don't even appreciate that that's what I'm doing behind the scenes, right? So before I'm going to put somebody on blast for stealing somebody's quarantine money, I want to reach out to them and say, hey, we've received this complaint. What's your side of the story? And there's a lot of times that it is resolved and the public never hears anything about it. people's reputations are not tarnished because I say to them, maybe you want to fix this, as opposed to having CMR having to highlight this and put this out there. And a lot of people don't know that. So even with the civil service, we have to appreciate that there are a lot of things, although we're providing some constructive criticism this morning, we have to appreciate that there's a lot of things in the background that are happening that we may not know about. Like, we don't know what their restrictions are. Like, why is it that a communications manager has such a hard time actually making a decision? Are their hands being tied by the next person that they answer to, the chief officers, et cetera, et cetera? Some clarity even on that would be amazing. So Nona says, Kevin, I agree with you. There's a lacking of daily updates of information guiding us through this pandemic. It sometimes seems as if we are left on our own to figure it out. There has to be continual communication, period. And Nona, I agree with you, but here's where I'm going to disagree with you. I don't think that we need daily updates about every single thing, because there is such a thing in the world of communications as overwhelming people with too much information. Right, Kevin? And he's on a call. Sorry. Let me just pull him out for 1 second. So there is such a thing as overwhelming people with too much information. And information saturation can be very stressful to people. So there's some people who can't handle too much information, child. When you start bombarding, they're like, oh my God, I can't take this. It's just too much. And there's too many COVID cases. And they literally just kind of like lose it, right? So I think that it's important to put the right amount of information out there and what people need and the correct detail level of information that's also required. So putting stuff out there every single day isn't necessarily, like, new information isn't necessarily what you want to do. I think what you need to do is have some key message indicators that are very, very important. So like we have some policies with the lateral flow test and the isolation policies. And you have to repeat those over and over and over again, because any of us who work in communications know you can't say something once and people are going to absorb that information and take it in. So research shows you got to do it 10 to 20 times. That's why every single day we're on here. Let's play one right now, telling you the census is important. And here's why.
Census 2021. Came on, get ready. Starting 10th of October 2021. West Bay, you ready? East End, we coming. Everyone will be counted. 2021. But in town, are you ready? Georgetown, we coming. Your info will be secret. Northside, get ready. Rockers will be counted. Little Cayman, we coming. People, get ready. 2021. Todos se cuentan. Latinos serán contados. Filipinos marcanda. 2021 census. Papa, are you ready? Mama will be counted. Children and toddlers. 2021. Information is secret. 2021 census. Starting October 10th. 2021 census. 2021 census. 2021 census. Everyone counts.
All right, folks, how many times have we played that? And some of you might be sitting here going, ooh, honey child, this is the first time I'm seeing that. The human brain can be a very, very interesting thing in terms of how information is received and how it's processed. So we're not saying, Nona, I mean, Kevin can certainly correct me because I think you were referring directly to Kevin's point, but we're not saying here that you have to inundate people with new information every single day, because I think that can be dangerous. But I think what needs to happen is that there has to be a communications plan of how you're going to roll out specific messages with a degree of consistency, so that by the 10th or 20th time, you've got people who go, oh, yeah, right. They're doing a census right now, and I need to participate. Flashpoint, good morning. Flashpoint says the politicians are to blame. They're so craven to get reelected and get a salary and benefits for doing very little. Flashpoint, I would like for you to clarify. I do know you have some other messages here, but to blame for what? For the lack of communication, for the processes not working as effectively as they could be, He also, I don't know if Flashpoint's a man or woman, but Flashpoint also says it's important that the government provide frequent and accurate updates. This includes policy updates. However, this isn't happening. Flashpoint goes on to say that there are government departments that refuse to answer the phone or respond to emails. The DG refuses to hold these departments responsible for the poor customer service. Now, let me say something about this, Flashpoint, because this is really important, I think. I agree with you 100%. And there are times when it was actually worse. And I'll never forget one time, many, many years ago, I applied for a civil service job, and it was some kind of manager in immigration. I can't remember exactly what the title was, but one of the assignments, because when you now apply for these management jobs, you don't just have to interview multiple times, but they give you real world assignments. Oh, draft a communications plan or solve this problem, or, which is good for them, because then they get these free assets from applicants who are more than aptly qualified to do the job, right? And so one of the things that I actually did was I provided I see Kevin's, I'm going to pull him out for 1 second. I actually provided, because one of the issues that immigration has always had complaints was they don't answer the phone. You call and it just rings off. So I actually provided a step-by-step solution for that problem, right? Based on the phone system that they had in use. So I researched the phone system, looked at the capabilities of the phone system, and I said, this is what you could do. And I remember a member of the interview panel saying to me, because I was one of the finalists, like, wow, this is an amazing presentation this report that you submitted is amazing. And they started to ask me questions about, from the technical end, how it could be done. And I'm thinking, you have spent thousands of dollars, and I don't know what your phone bill looks like each month, but it's a pretty penny, on a system that offers you all of these things, reporting capabilities, et cetera, and you don't even know how to use it. Not only do you not know how to use it, but you don't even know that these features exist, and that you could contact Flo and said, Flo, I want reports on how many times a phone rings before it's answered, and how many phones just ring out and never get answered. That, and they were just like, oh, wow, we could do this. And I'm like, didn't get the job, but you got my report, because that's just how the process works. But to me, it is amazing, Flashpoint, how a lot of times, yes, civil servants are not held accountable. Sometimes they're not held accountable because even the managers don't know what's going on. They hear these stories, but there's no real world application of what's happening. Here's another example. Somebody was saying to me yesterday, they were trying to reach someone over at Customs. And they said, Sandy, I was trying to call this person over at Customs, and I called and I asked for the director of Customs email address. And they refused to give me his email address. They refused to give me his PA's direct line. And I said, how can they be refusing to do that? They cannot be refusing to do that, because those are government numbers. Somebody's government email address is not a secret, right? I mean, really? You can normally figure it out because we know what the formula is that they use. But every single government person, if I call the receptionist right now and I say I want so-and-so's email address, you either need to give me their email address or the email address of their PA. There's no reason why civil servants should be telling people, oh, you can't have a person's work number or work email address. That's ridiculous. That's not private information. That is stuff that we, the people, the voters in this country, are actually paying. That's what we pay all our fees, so that civil servants can have work phones. Each one of them get issued a nice fancy iPhones, and there used to be Blackberries back in the day. The reason why you have those tools is to do your government work. And if the people who need to be able to reach you can't even get your email address because they're being told that your email address is somehow private, that's a problem. And that should never be happening. And when someone said this to me yesterday, I'm like, that's still happening? From way back when? I addressed that like 15 years ago. And I'm surprised that anybody in the civil service is still thinking that this information is private. So Flashpoint, I agree with you there that there has to be some degree of accountability. And I mean, France has been working very hard trying to create this world-class civil service. And a lot of times it's the little things that's going to trip them up. So Flashpoint also says that it's the responsibility of the DG to respond to the repeated complaints from the public and put in place policies and procedures that will hold underperforming government departments accountable. Listen, Nona says we need to go back to daily briefings where the public is informed about how to navigate this pandemic. Hands off is not the way to go. So again, I don't personally agree with that. I don't think that a daily briefing is necessary, and I'm going to tell you why. Even the last couple ones that we've had, the people are like, why are we having this? There's nothing new to report. So I think, unfortunately, Nona, you're in the minority of people who want a daily briefing. Most people don't want a daily briefing because then what they sit down and do is they sit in the briefing, they listen, they'd be like, oh, this is stupid. Why are we hearing this? Da, 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 da. It just provides an opportunity for people to sit there and lambast the government, saying, well, the government has nothing new to tell me. Oh, they had it. One of the funny things that was said last time is, oh, they had a meeting to say that another meeting's coming. But one of the reasons that they did it is because people like Nona are saying, oh, we need more, we need more, we need more. You don't need more from the elected officials, actually, because there's only so much that they can tell you. What you need more of is the civil servants deploying the information on a consistent and regular basis to reinforce the new policies and measures that are being put in place. What you need more of are messages, for example, that says, we are reopening on November the 20th. And speaking of which, let's play one of those messages right now.
I'm ready to reopen Cayman because it's time that our friends, family, and tourists are able to come once again and visit our beautiful island.
When we open up the borders, travel is going to be freer and we're going to be able to travel between countries better.
I'm ready to reopen to be reunited with my loved ones living abroad.
I'm ready to reopen.
Right? This is a private group of individuals who are saying we're ready to reopen. And those messages are going out all over the place. This is what you need to do. So I don't think daily press briefings from the politicians is what we need. I think we need messages from public health, Travel Cayman. This is what you should be doing in quarantine. This is how you stay safe. All of those types of messages are good. Press briefings, no. And the other reason why we don't need daily press briefings is, you know what's going to happen? The media is going to commandeer those press briefings. They take it over and they sit down there and they talk and ask 50 millionth questions. What do we call it? What's the Caymanian way of saying it? 1100 or whatever. You know how we'll say numbers like that. All these questions, and you're all sitting there going, oh, this media house again. Why do they have to have two reporters asking questions? And you're making fun of their reporters like, damn, wasn't she listening? The man just answered that and she didn't even have to ask that question. It's a colossal waste of time, actually, especially when every single day GIS is actually putting the information out there. So it's not like information isn't coming out. Now, CMR does things a little bit differently, and we understand, Nona, why people want to know. That's why somebody sneezes in East End and that causes a fire in the bushes, we gotta report it. Because y'all want to know, because y'all be messaging me, Sandy, I just saw the police pass my house. You know what's going on? And I'm like, no, I don't. But let me ask if it's anything urgent or what, you know? Yeah, boy, the police just escorted, this happened on, was it Friday or Saturday? The police just escorted 3 ambulances out of West Bay. You not hearing nothing, Noah? And I'm like, let me contact my sources and see what's going on. Because you guys want to know. And listen, we've set the expectation now that we're going to let you know what's going on. Right? So now, does that mean that the government needs to be having a press briefing every day? Well, we had, I can see it now. All right. Well, we had 3 ambulances left West Bay at 1:45 p.m. And then at 2:15, we had to do a rescue of a fish out of a little puddle there in the Newlands. That's not what's needed. So again, it's about what is being delivered, who is being delivered by, and you know what you really need to hear. So Sonia, good morning. Joy is here. Good morning, Alex. So good to see you. Ralston is here. He's watching us from Atlanta. So good to see you. Debbie is here. Good morning to the beautiful Debbie. Ms. Joy says, congrats, keep it up. Tommy, good morning. So nice of you to join us. Moya says they were busy catering to the baby boomer generation who likes communication via TV or radio station and totally forgot the Generation Z and onwards capture our information via social media. Moya, this is a very interesting point. Even now I hear people saying, oh, I miss Cayman 27. Can't they bring it back? And I'm like, how many of you actually watched Cayman 27 when they were around? I mean, honest to God, be honest now. Even if you still had an antenna or whatever kind of TV, I cannot lie about this. I have not had access to Cayman 27 in form of a traditional TV probably since the 1990s. And I came back in 1996 to Cayman. So if that tells you anything, I think the first couple years I had a TV that I could get it on. And I don't know if I had cable, whatever. But after that, I had Dish Network. I don't know nothing about Cayman 27. How I would see it is when they would stream on social media. Or I could go on the website and I could pull it up on YouTube or whatever. That's how I got my news. So Moya, it's interesting that there's still a lot of people, not a lot, I don't think it's a lot at all, but there's still some people who are like, oh, I need to hear it on TV. I need to hear it on a traditional radio station. I'm like, do you really? Most of y'all getting your news on WhatsApp. That's why the spread of misinformation is happening so incredibly quickly, because everything you get, you're spreading it on WhatsApp without even checking the sources. Good morning, Jean. Jean says a lot of things going on and a lot in and out of portion. You have to investigate, B for doing things, but a lot of people believe everything they have. What do you think is right? I think a couple of things are missing in that, but yeah, I mean, I do think that a lot happens. And sometimes I think that, like I said earlier, bombarding people with information isn't necessarily the way that you want to go either. So good morning to Emma. She says, everyone, good morning, everyone. Good job, Sandy and Kevin. Keep up the good work. Much blessings to all. Scott is here. Big shout out to Scott. You guys got to go by and check Scott out. He has these really nice sausage rolls that they do at Waffle Monkey. And he's now increased the number of days that they're offering them. Scott, I'm giving you some free promos this morning, but let me tell you something. Those are so good. I don't know if they fall into my diet, though. I mean, I can eat the sausage because that's protein. But that nice flaky crust, oh my God, it is to die for. That's probably not part of the new diet. Good morning to Perla. How are you? Perla says exactly. I'm going to catch up on some messages here. Each one has a desk phone and refuses to answer it, specifically when it has caller ID. Aha. And that was one of the things in my actual, I was telling you guys with this job I applied for, right? That was one of the things that I said, turn off the caller ID function. They're like, oh, you can do that? I said, yes, honey child. Because when they see it's my coworker over there calling me, they get a quick time answer it. When they see it's an external phone call, oh, I can't be bothered answering no questions right now. I'm busy. Miss Romelia, good morning. She says, good morning, Sandy and Cayman. I'm sorry, but it's about how many people are living here, how many are not working, how many people are working, how many are Caymanians, how many aren't Caymanians, how many are insured and how they aren't. Now, when they want, let me see if this, now when they want to question you, how many TVs, radios, generators, laptop, tablets, and so on, it is irrelevant. What next? So Mr. Amelia is talking about the census questions. You might have missed a show yesterday, Ms. Amelia, but we did address why those things could be and are relevant. I'm going to repeat it again, because again, this is why you have to be willing to have conversations where you repeat things more than once. And so sometimes I don't get offended when I have to repeat things more than once. So let me say it again. When they ask you things like, how many radios do you have? How many, you might think that's nobody's business. That has nothing to do with the price of rice in China. However, it is relevant to some of the reports that the government will put out. So here, I'm going to repeat the exact same example I told you yesterday. When they're asking you, do you have internet in your home? You know, do you guys have access to computers and so on, right? How many people do you have? Okay. So now the government knows, based on this census information, that the average household, because they're able to collate this information into what's called meaningful data. That's why they want to know. They're not concerned about you personally, but they have to get each individual's information to be able to put the data set together. Now, hopefully I'm not going above anybody's head now, but when we're talking about statistics, how do you get accurate information? You have to get it from somewhere. You can't just pull it out of thin air and make it up, because then y'all gonna blame the government for making up figures and making up numbers. So when the government is making policy decisions, do we need a program where children actually get laptops to be able to do online studying for schools and to be able to do their homework, etc. How do you think the government can make such a decision if they don't know what the average household in Cayman has? Because if everybody in Cayman has access to the internet, everybody in Cayman has access to computers, right? I've got 5 children in my home. They each have their own computer. They each have a tablet, blah, blah, blah. Then the government at the decision-making level, policy level, takes that information from the Office of Statistics, what is it, EOS, Economics and Statistics Office, based on the census report. And then they say, you know what? We're focusing money and energy trying to deploy these resources to our children into homes, and they don't need it because everybody in Cayman has a computer. Every child has internet in their home. Every child has access to this, that, and the next thing. So that is why they're asking you the questions that they're asking you. Here's another example, Mr. Amelia. I just said to you that nobody is watching Cayman 27 on a regular TV. And you might argue that, Sandy, that's not true. Well, how do you know that ain't true? The only way that you can know that that information isn't true is if someone has bothered to collect the data. So when they say, how many TVs do you have? You know, do you have cable? Do you know, they're trying to figure out what trends are, what people have, and all these sorts of things. So those things do matter. And maybe, again, the census, EOS people, I hope you're listening. Maybe you haven't done a good enough job going out there to all the different media outlets and getting the message out to the public, not just that you need to participate in the census, but why? Because you don't get buy-in from people if they don't understand why they are doing something. And buy-in is where people are going to participate and they're going to commit to it. Magdalene says, if you watch Kevin's shows, that's enough information. This is right, Sandy, information from the Civil Service on COVID. We definitely need more of that. Magdalene also says, people just want to know the numbers of COVID cases. That's what they want in prep briefings, which CMR offers in a cut above. What CMR offers is a cut above how we can cope with COVID and what are the effects, etc. And not only that, Magdalene, is people don't just want to know the numbers, because now people are asking more information. Well, how many people are vaccinated? And this is a question that I get all the time. And if you're not prepared to provide that information, then the conspiracy theories come out with their little conspiracy theory Bible. Well, they're not telling us the number of vaccinated or unvaccinated because obviously it's not favorable to the vaccination. I'm going to pull Kevin in on this discussion, right? So they haven't told us that this person who's hospitalized is actually vaccinated, because that's going to look bad because the government's been pushing a vaccination mandate. And I'm like, how do you jump to that conclusion so quickly? They haven't been providing the vaccination, the unvaccinated numbers, because that takes longer. And the chief medical officer, Dr. Lee, has said this. It takes longer to verify that information, because you can't just take it from the person who's like, oh yeah, I'm vaccinated. You need to get and see the code and verify it. And, you know, so you've got an average of 12. Let me pull up some numbers here to give y'all a real world example of what we're talking about, right? So say they do 1,300 tests in a day. And this isn't just government. This is now private sector. This is, Doctors Hospital, Health City, all these other people pulling information in. So on Tuesday, November the 2nd, there are 1,115 PCR tests conducted. Okay? 115 positives. Of those, 4 travelers and 11 community transmission. So now you want the breakdown of how many are asymptomatic versus symptomatic, how many are vaccinated versus unvaccinated. That information takes time to collate and put together.
And Sandra, I would love to pick up on that, because this is sharp in my head. That makes it a lot more challenging in Cayman. And I know people are going to not like this idea, but it is how the United States is able to keep a little better record of and be able to do things a little quicker. In addition to them having electronic reporting, and ultimately there's a lot of other people that are carrying out testing. But the way to be able to identify things a little quicker is we have social security numbers, and that number is identified to that one individual, where we could link it to someone who is fully vaccinated. The Cayman Islands does not have that type of system, and so we do know. I know there are at least 2 to 3 other Kevin Wacklers in the Cayman Islands that I know about. So you have to make sure that it's not Kevin Wattler A, B, or C, and there's a lot of legwork that takes up significant time to check and verify date of birth, address, and all sorts of other information in order to make sure that that data is actually accurate. So in the Cayman Islands, we don't have the type of system that is here in the States. I know other countries also have similar systems where they have identifying numbers associated with every single head. So it is a lot more challenging for those who are working in public health to really be able to connect the dots. And so I do not think going forward, and I'm going to be very clear, because Cayman's not going to be any different from the rest of the world. Cayman is now moving into a different chapter, a different phase of the pandemic. It is now established that we have widespread community spread. The data that you're going to start seeing coming out is going to be less and less accurate. There's going to be too many different factors that's in play, where people are going to be getting sick who might not be able to get tested because, one, they might be in quarantine or isolation and they're not going to get tested, but they might have some of the symptoms and they might get it. So you're not going to have every single case now being reported. It's going to be definitely underreported, the numbers that you're seeing. What you do know, and this is what you really need to know, is that there is significant community spread throughout the island. What you do need to know is that there is a lot of people vaccinated, but not enough to really reduce the amount of illness that will occur. Because if you look at the data that is now promised to come out each and every week, we're looking at unvaccinated people getting sick. So it's tearing through the unvaccinated population at a much higher rate than the vaccinated people. I'm going to go to my notes here because I took some notes yesterday when we were having this discussion on the percentages of people who are fully vaccinated versus the people.
And while you're doing that, Kevin, let me just read another question while you're pulling up that information. So we have a participant here in WhatsApp who says, being a politician is more than lip service. It's actually about doing the work. I noticed Kenneth doesn't do any Facebook recordings anymore. The problem is government agencies don't communicate and operate like silos. Caribbean people different when it comes to taking in information. And to that viewer, I appreciate the comment. And what I would say is two things about that. Number one, appreciating how busy the minister is. I could see why he no longer has the time. It's easier to be a backbencher, folks. Half of them don't even show up to work. Let me tell y'all a bit of information here about backbenchers at this moment, right? You know, I've been kind of taking a little jab at Alden McLaughlin about his lack of appearance since he's been on the backbench. But this isn't about me taking a little jab at him. This is a serious thing because he still represents the people of Red Bay, right? He's still an important part of the process as part of the opposition, and not to just sit back and criticize, but to actually get some work done. He has demonstrated, since he's now on the backbench, that he is not going to show up before lunchtime to any legislative assembly meetings. I'm telling you all the truth. Go and pull the Hansards for yourself. Last week, Friday, the government, on Thursday, you know, the government invited the opposition to come and have a meeting. Who do you think didn't show up? If you watch Kevin's shows, that's enough. So people like the former premier, Alden McLaughlin, did not show up. They had a, what's it called now? A parliamentary council meeting or something, right? And who do you think was a no-show yet again? And this was, as far as I recall, my information, a virtual forum. So it wasn't even like the man's scared of COVID. This is online. He does not show up. He is unbothered. And I think every other opposition member was there but Alden. I'll double check. But he is checked out in a lot of regards. And it's easy to check out when you're in the opposition, when you are a backbench member. So, you know, not for nothing, but when you're in that house, and by the way, here's another thing. How often, even when he was premier, how often was he actually keeping office hours in the government building? Somebody said to me, who's very close to that situation, so that you could run your finger on the dust by the computer because he wasn't there as often as people thought. So those of you like, oh, the last government was doing such a great job, and they were having all these press briefings. A lot of times Alden was not going to work. His computer, when the new premier comes in, had to be reconfigured and reset up because it really hadn't even been used. Now, when you talk about you want to be balanced and fair and you want the cold hard truth, there are times when I have to point this stuff out to you to give you the cold hard truth, because I know that what you don't know, they say ignorance is bliss, and what you don't know can make you have a certain perception of individuals when that, folks, is not necessarily the reality. So Rachel says there needs to be a massive communication push. Lots of people pass around WhatsApp messages and videos to public health and a communications arm of CIG, making lots of short videos and clear visuals explaining quarantine, rapid testing, schools' COVID policies, tracking disinformation rumors every single day. And you got to send it out 20 times once it's correct and accurate versus all the fake stuff that is being put out there. Nona says that the daily press briefings can include instructions from civil servants and experts to guide us through all of these new policies that have people confused. Repetition of pertinent information is key. I agree with you 1,000%, but I do not think it needs to come in the form of a daily press briefing. First of all, Nona, do you appreciate what it takes to even set up and organize a press briefing? You might see them there for 2.5. If the media had their way and they got to ask every single question, every press briefing would be 4 hours. Honest to God, right? And your ministers and your civil servants would not be able to do anything else. To prepare for a press briefing, GIS has to set up all kind of fancy equipment to be able to record and disseminate that information. Even me, I am bothered by a lot of press briefings. I'm like, Jesus, I got to take 2 hours out of my time to sit down and listen to this. And I'm only going to be able to pick out 2 things that I didn't already know that were really important. So press briefings, most people, and I get that Nona obviously loves press briefings, but for most people, press briefings, more of that isn't what's needed and really even what they want. And the amount of time that you waste in preparation for a press briefing is significant. Believe me, and it's not necessary to do it that way. You can still get that information out there without having a press briefing every single day. So Rachel says, I get the feeling that the sign-off chain is slowing all down. There isn't time for 13 people to sign off on everything over 4 days when false news can fly around Cayman in an hour. Precisely. Good morning, Tracy. Damien is here. Says they don't include questions about salary, employment, and cost of living. The census? They do ask you about what your salary range is. They're not going to ask you exactly how much you're making, but they do have a range, and they do ask about employment. I don't know if there's a question about cost of living, but this is how they come up with information about cost of living. It's based on the questions and stuff that you've answered. So Rachel says, looking at Bermuda, they have a great daily dashboard with all the data and updates, and we have a dashboard too. I'm sure there's folks here who could create and manage something similar.
Well, I'll say that the dashboard that we have is crap. It's it's rubbish. It really is. A lot more data needs to be in there, which is the data that I've actually requested from after we had our show with Dr. Edwin Michael, because that's the data we really need to be able to give a proper roadmap on where Cayman is going based on the current situation. So what is being presented is just a couple of slides that really does not paint a really good picture, especially for anyone who works in public health to be able to really take that and interpret that to know how to respond. Because if you see what I get from my epidemiologist, and there are some things in that's a little higher level than I understand, and this is when I have to have my phone call with him. They break this down for me, Michael. I brought Mike on the show, and he, he's very good. Not all epidemiologists are like this. This goes back to the health literacy type of conversation. Not every doctor, not every scientist is very good at communicating and making sure people understand the data. It needs to be broken down in such a way. So I do have to go back to him and say, hey, explain some of this data to me. But at the same time, people are very visual. Listening to just a bunch of words from someone speaking is not necessarily going to really tell the story and make people understand.
But you know what, Kevin? I'm going to disagree with you on this one. in terms of the dashboard that's provided to the general public, I think is enough. I think there's such a thing as providing people too much information. So the level of information that you may need and you may want isn't what the average person needs or wants. There are people who don't even understand. I mean, up to this day, there's still people who are confused about what's symptomatic and what isn't symptomatic. You know, I got a phone call, a voice note last night of a lady who has, she's a cancer survivor. She's diabetic. She has a whole lot of comorbidities and she's not yet vaccinated. And she now wants to get vaccinated. And she was asking me questions that made me understand that she has missed the boat on every single piece of information that's put out there. She's saying that, oh, her friend has told her, again, here we go, with where you get information from. Her friend has told her that there's an option of getting a one-shot vaccine in Cayman. I was like, no, that's the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, and we've never had that available here. Then she's saying, well, you know, I just want to get those shot. I want to get everything one time, like the booster, everything one time. I'm like, that's not how it works. Like everybody should know by now, you can't get the booster shot until after 6 months that you've had the full dose. And you don't get protection even after the second dose, your full dose, until like 2-3 weeks after. Like there were so many things that she was asking me, and I took my time with her because, you know, if somebody doesn't know and they don't understand, then we need to break it down. But there's so much information that she didn't understand about the vaccine. And I'm thinking, I wonder how many press briefings has she watched? How many of these dashboards has she looked at? And she just isn't understanding. Somebody else yesterday was asking, well, you know, if I have the flu, not COVID, but just a regular flu, can I go get vaccinated? Remember, we addressed this on one of our shows. So I think that there is such a thing as oversaturating people with too much information. So I don't necessarily think that the dashboard information that we have needs to be any more complicated for the average person. What I do think is they do need to be collecting on the back end tons of information that when someone like you, Kevin, goes to them and says, okay, I need this additional information to be able to give to an epidemiologist for him to do forecasting, for him to plug in and give me all this other stuff. That is different. That is different. And even when we had the epidemiologist on, to be honest, I think 97% of what he said was like, went over the head, but there's key points about when you're going to have your peaks, how it's going to come down. Those were the key things that I think that people were able to grasp, but the details in his graphs and so on is great if you're really into numbers and, you know, you've done a statistics course and all this sort of stuff, but how useful and meaningful is that to the average person? I don't think none at all.
And this is where I think we're saying almost the same thing, but at the same time, the information needs to be there for people who want that information. So the information that is presented as it is, that is only for a very small segment of the population. But there's information that also needs to be there because ultimately you're going to have people questioning some of that data and asking for more, causing what we're having right now in Cayman, a lot of additional questions leading to disinformation being spread. Again, to the point of, okay, how many people of those that are getting sick are vaccinated versus unvaccinated? That data was not shared publicly until yesterday, really, or the day before, late 2 days ago. So call it yesterday was the first time majority of the public was able to see it, but it needs to be there to be able to communicate that message to those who really need that message. It's very vital that data is made public. And then to the whole point about the symptomatic versus not symptomatic, that really is useless information because one day I could be symptomatic, the next day I mightn't be symptomatic. That really should have no place on the image that's out there, because the way they're getting that information is literally checking in on people each time they do their check-in. Do you have symptoms or not, and what are you going through?
I mean, to be honest,
that's
a lot
irrelevant
of people,
information.
I don't think that that's how they're getting that information. I think that at testing, if the person, when they're testing positive, if they're showing any symptoms at that point, that's where that information is coming from, because they're not really checking in on people anymore. And this is another thing, talking about managing expectations. I had someone message me last night, why haven't they called me? And I said, well, why are you expecting them to call you? Because she's positive and she's in isolation. And they're like, well, shouldn't somebody be calling me to make sure I'm okay? And I said, well, they're not doing that anymore. And again, maybe that hasn't been made clear. But what they are doing is telling you that if you get sick, you pick up the phone, you call 911, or you call for help. You call the flu hotline if you need them. Because there's so many people now that are in isolation that they don't have the time to call everybody every single day and be like, how are you feeling? And have a 5-minute conversation. Damien says, do they have to pay a fine if they miss a meeting unless it's a legit emergency? No, You can elect people, and this has happened, folks. You can elect people, and they can never show up to a single sitting of the Legislative Assembly, and they will not be fined. They will not be held accountable, nothing until it comes election time. And even when you're telling people, wow, they never showed up to work, y'all still vote them back in. And that's why Andrea says, why do we keep voting these people back in? Well, that's a question for the voters that do so. I don't know. Perla says everyday press briefings would bore the people, and especially the reporters they select. Why not select
we need things in sound bites. Nobody has the attention span to really absorb all of the information over an hour or 2 hour period. It's not possible for really anyone to absorb all that information. This is why you need the communications team pushing out information in little sound bites, little snippets, no more than 2 to 3, maybe 5 minutes maximum at a time. And that's even too long. When we have reporter packages back to came on 27 days and stuff, why do you think the packages were at a certain length? No more than 1:15 to about maximum. You got lucky if April or Ben Mead had approved the 2-minute package. It had to be really darn good in order for us to have a package that long, because there's studies out there that shows that that human brain's not going to listen to anything more than that, even to this show. How many times do people kind of do other things throughout the day because our brain cannot really absorb all that information, and we need those little mind resets, because again, you're going to be repeating the same thing over and over, because one repetition is key in order for you to be able to have that information stick.
Yep. And I mean, I keep an eye. It's so funny because I'm not a numbers person in terms of I hated math when I was in school and that sort of thing. But I am a numbers person when it comes to like social media. Like I pay attention to those reports. I know what the trends are, and I don't obsess about it, but I have an idea certainly of what's going on. So for example, this morning I've been watching our numbers on the show, and consistently we've been around the 260, between 260 and 270 range in terms of the people who are listening. And I know, of course, that the vast majority of those, probably close to 200, 174. The YouTube, just speaking of numbers, the YouTube crowd is really picking up, but I know that the majority are always on Facebook. And that's why we deliver a message in certain ways. Like there's sometimes that when I go live, you notice that I never go live on YouTube outside of the show, because I know that the vast majority of people are going to get the message even on Facebook. So Damien says that he wasn't asked those questions. You should have at least been asked the salary range question for sure, because I remember when I did mine that one was definitely on there. So Andrea is complimenting the hair and makeup. So Andrea, you probably missed that show last week where I talked about my new hassle-free makeup routine. And it's all done virtually. Somebody said, Sandy, why did you tell people that? You could have pulled this off without ever telling anyone that, this isn't like you don't actually have on lashes and stuff this morning. I said, well, why would I want to do that? This show is called The Cold Hard Truth. I'm honest with you guys about everything else. So why would I stand here and pretend like I'm not using technology to make me look beautiful? So the lips are real. So I just put on a little lip gloss. I change that up. Sometimes I'm doing more of a neutral brown this morning. And the hair, all I did this morning, nothing fancy, because y'all know I ain't got time for no hairstyles, as I just slicked it back. So I just wet it and slip it back in one. I got my little pigtail going on back here. And then I just brushed it back and bam, that's it. So slicking it back is an easy look for me. It's how I've always done my hair, really, even when it was.
And people are watching you, because I remember when you first started to do it, somebody had tried to do a little slick comment inside there saying, "Oh, nice filter, Sandy," and they obviously missed some of the conversation before.
Yes, because we went into great length about how I'm doing the look. And in fact, for Halloween, I don't know if you guys missed it, but I had a totally different. Let me see if I can pull up the Halloween one. The Halloween one was really funny, I thought. Okay, here it is. Look at that. Isn't that cool? That was my Halloween look. But I tend to keep it on this one because this one is simple. It's not overly done. It's not super crazy. And it still looks like me. Like you can still see that obviously this is me. So yeah, the only thing this one does really is it puts on eyelashes on me, and it makes me look like I have a little bit of blush. And I think it makes me look like I have, it looks like I have eye makeup on as well. A little bit. But this is pretty, and then it just evens out the tone a little bit. Like it's nothing too crazy. It's mostly around the eyes that this one seems to add a little bit of help. But yes, thank you, Andrea. Nonetheless, I'll take the compliment. Soka says, yes, she is a great makeup artist, doesn't breathe on her, and offers free service. Miss Techie, love it. And Soka says, imagine if you had to call 1,300 people every single day to see how they're feeling. If you feel like you can't handle the symptoms, you call them.
So I can tell you how that was managed here when we started to pick up cases, because again, as you can imagine, we went up to more than 2,000 cases in my county per day. And we had a team of maybe about 150 contact tracers. And to give you perspective, a contact tracing, when they're calling and doing these investigations, on average, it takes about a half an hour per individual. There's just not enough time in a day to complete that. So what we did, we utilized technology for those who were able to. And so there was an app that checked in on you every single day. We used that virtually. So every single day, even when I was in quarantine on the couple of occasions where I had to go in quarantine because of a contact with a positive case, every single day I would get a message where it would ask me if I had symptoms. And then if I hit yes, I would have to put in what my symptoms are. Or if I didn't have symptoms, I said no. And then they will just send me a nice little message saying, thank you, continue to do X, Y, and Z to keep safe and blah, 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 blah. And if anything was to change, I could respond to the text and then let them know something's changed throughout the day before I got my next check-in. So again, technology can be utilized to assist in the whole public health thing. So public health workers who are working in the background, looking at the data that's coming in, have a little better idea of really what's going on. And ultimately, that information is what was used to learn a lot more about the virus. Because I could tell you, initially, when this thing first started to happen, there was so many unknowns about things, and then things just kept on evolving, and now we know a whole lot more about the virus. Do we know everything? Absolutely not. There's still more learning to occur, but again, we have a much better idea as the virus evolves again. If it mutates, we're going to again have to do another learning thing. Delta was unheard of before, because again, before Delta, COVID was a complete different illness. It really primarily attacked the elderly people, and the younger people really had very little effect. Now we see it's expanded to a little bit more of the younger folks. Again, still the older people are more vulnerable, but the good thing about it is more of the older people actually got the jab. And so we're seeing a lot of older people getting protected because of the benefits that the vaccine is offering them. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. There's still other things that is causing some of the older folks to still be impacted. But at the same time, we do have another tool in the toolkit. You've heard that saying so many times, where it's really helping. Because if we didn't have the jab and the Delta variant came out and started to go through the population like the way it's going, my goodness, you could only imagine the amount of death we would have had if we didn't have such an amazing tool to really help out, save so many lives. And a number
let's look at our numbers, Kevin. Let's just have a quick look to break down the last numbers we had, which I know we wanted to discuss on yesterday's program, in terms of vaccinations and whether or not vaccinations are helping. So again, there is this bit of misinformation out there, folks, where there are those of you who think that because, the government hasn't said how many are vaccinated, how many are not unvaccinated, that's some conspiracy theory and people are withholding information. And that actually just isn't the case at all. Like I was legit surprised to hear someone that I thought was relatively intelligent say that to me. And I was thinking, why would you think that? So,
and why would the Cayman Islands be any different than the rest of the world? Because we've had the data for the rest of the world. Cayman is,
but they don't want to believe it. So, so public health reported for the week of the October 24th through the 30th, there was an average of 131 cases. I guess that's per day. Yeah, only 2.5% were in travelers. So y'all still talking about people breaching quarantine and travelers. That, listen, need not be your concern, because you're majoring in the minor. Yes, the travelers are not the ones who are exposing the community any longer. So 52% female, 48% male. I would expect those numbers because we have a population that's right about that anyway. So we have a few more female than male in our population. Age range from 1 month to 80 years old. And most people who are actually getting it are the millennials and baby boomers between 18 to 70. Well, I don't think 70 is a millennial anymore, but are they considered baby boomers? 70s?
No, they're the baby boomers, and then millennials will be the 18. I think it switches over after you reach millennials go up to about 35 or so. For those who, I'm a millennial. I'm one of the older millennials, and it goes down for a little bit before you get into the Gen X. So, because I'm going to be 35 this year. So yes, baby, I'm a baby. Okay. A lot of people think that sometimes I'm a little older, but no, I am 34 years old, going to be 35. So millennials and to baby boomers, they're the ones that are primarily getting it. The average age, if you want to put the average age, when you put all the numbers together, 34. So people my age are the ones that are out there getting it and spreading it. Primarily.
Yeah, because you're the ones out in those bars and on the.
You are correct. Who are in the bars? Primarily, your 20 to 30-year-olds. And then when you kind of put it in all in average, we're the ones that are out there getting COVID and spreading the nastiness, not the love.
Now
but
here's one that was really important. I thought only 5 were infants, 14% minors between 1 and 18. That's important because there's a lot of people who were saying, well, of course it's going to be mostly unvaccinated people because it's mostly children who are getting it. It's actually not. 14% isn't a majority, folks. 14% out of 100% is not a majority. So what that tells you is, again, the majority of adults who are getting it are still the unvaccinated population. Listen very carefully to what I just said. 14% were minors between 1 and 18 years of age who are ineligible, and not even all those are ineligible. Some of them up to 16 are ineligible for the vaccine, right? So
what
it's
this also tells me, Sandra, is that the schools are actually doing a better job than I thought they were going to be doing. That means that they are really encouraging and enforcing people, the students, to wear their masks. It's also telling me that we have a good amount of teachers that are vaccinated because we don't want teachers spreading it to the children. Now, is it going to be perfect? No, probably not. But at the same time, this does tell me, based on that data, that it looks like it's the super spreader events is not occurring in the schools.
No, they're happening in the bars.
Is in the bars, the nightclubs, those places where we have larger social indoor type of gatherings.
I had FOI'd, and I don't think I'm ever going to get this FOI because they haven't even gotten back to me. But I know through sources, and y'all know I got sources all over the place, that one of those super spreader locations happened to be in Cotton Club. But I wanted to know how much of a super spreader it was. And so I asked them to give me how many contact tracing have you done linked back to Cotton Club. I'm still waiting on that information. Like I said, I'll probably never get it, but it needs to be put out there so that y'all who going out in the bars, and I've seen your photos, you're sending me pictures. Oh, but Sandy, I'm at Cotton Club right now having a drink. I'm like, girl, you are so, you're not
I'm
too
going
smart.
to tell you, I have family members that were linked back to Cotton Club, more than one, because they're out and they're having a good time. And again, they're in my age group.
And they're talking about they're wearing a mask, but how many times you don't take your mask down to take a drink and to talk to people and whatever?
When
in that
you are
environment,
at the bar or nightclub, you're in an environment where there's, and it's a loud environment. So you have to talk louder. As you talk louder, more of that stuff that comes out of your nose and mouth is really coming out there, and it's going to just fill the air. And so you're in an environment where even if you're vaccinated, and a lot of my cousins actually who got it were vaccinated, a couple of them were not, but most of them were, and they end up getting it. And then I use that analogy where if you get exposed so many times, you're likely going to have a breakthrough situation. It's like a police officer going into a gunfight. If you're inside your basic tactical gear, just the bulletproof vest, and you get shot a couple of times, you might be okay. At the same time, if you get hit,
times you get shot, the more likely it is, that a bullet's going to penetrate that vest, or miss the vest completely. So 1% are over 70 years of age, so that's good. And again, I think that shows the saturation of the elderly population that have taken advantage of the vaccination program. So kudos on them. Unvaccinated population made up for 61% of the cases, and fully vaccinated 36%, with 3% being partially vaccinated. So of course we know you'll get some protection if you're partially vaccinated, but that's not the ideal situation. So once again, the majority of people who are even testing positive are unvaccinated people. Now, here's the other thing that I would like. Now we talk about the balance of too much information versus not enough. I would have loved for those numbers, the percentages, to extend to the people who were actually hospitalized, because I think that is important. However, y'all know we're resourceful here at CMR. So we found out anyway, because there's only 8 people. So we found out that of the people in the hospital, 5 are unvaccinated and 3 are vaccinated. Once again, the unvaccinated making up the majority.
And guess what? No surprise. That's what the data showed here. Whether you believe what the people are saying, you actually heard from, we brought on the CMR COVID Spotlight show, people who work in the hospital setting that are sharing their experience. And this is where I want to kind of, again, talk about the COVID, the CMR COVID Spotlight. What every one of you who are watching now can really do to help. Everyone is able to help right now. The CMR COVID Spotlight it's covered so many topics, and CMR only has so much reach. There's only, not everyone necessarily are going to come to CMR and watch it. But if you're watching this now, please share the videos with your friends and family members, because you could make a difference by doing that, because this isn't about CMR or Sandra Catron, or sorry, Sandra Hill, sorry. So this is not about Sandra Hill. This is not about Kevin Watler. This is about protecting one another. This is about sharing actual factual information from experts in the public health field, people that's been going through this. So there's so many different ranges of shows that we've done with so many different topics. If you are watching on Facebook, there is an actual, if you click on video, go to Facebook, you click on where it says videos, you will see an album on there that has all of the shows in one place that shows all the different topics. Take those and share it to your friends and family. Encourage them to watch it. It has vital information in there from experts who are sharing their experiences, sharing their facts. These are people that are just loving to spread facts and information and have a passion for public health. These are not politicians. These are not people that have some sort of agenda. If you want to say they have an agenda, it is a public health agenda to protect the lives of everyone in this world, not just in America, not just in Canada, not just in Europe, in the world, because ultimately this is not a pandemic that stops at a border. This is something that needs to be addressed globally, which is why they are absolutely happy to help spread information to the people of the Cayman Islands. They know that I reach out to them because I have a love for the people of the Cayman Islands, and they are more than happy to give up their very valuable time to share that information that they are able to share.
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify. I know you guys had asked me to check the governor's office about the lateral flow test. They've responded. They're actually pretty good responding, especially in WhatsApp on his behalf. And they said that the governor's office is not responsible for the ordering of the LFTs. That is the Ministry of Education, District Administration, Lands and Surveying. So you need to check with them. So we will message. Don't bother messaging Juliana, child, because she ain't gonna respond to you on WhatsApp. So I think what I'll do is I will message their PR person. I'm trying to remember what her name is now. Oh gosh. Education. They're not too bad with responding. Let me just see if I can find that. So I'll try to ascertain some additional information. Like I said, I do know that the minister yesterday mentioned that a large supply is coming. We're just trying to get some more details. Oh yes, so this is Stacey Ann Anderson. She is the I don't know what her official title is, but she is definitely the one responsible for, oops, make sure I type in the right email here. So yeah, she's the one responsible for doing PR stuff for the ministry. Coming in the next shipment, and when is that expected to arrive? So, and by the way, whenever government officials get emails from me, you have to excuse my lack of, a lot of times I'm not particularly courteous in the sense that I try to say good morning or good day or something like that, but I dispense with being overly courteous in the interest of just, getting the information as quickly as possible. So good morning to Minister Brian. Kristen says, why are they still getting paid, referring to MPs? We, the people, need to hold them accountable. Well, we tried to hold them accountable during the last election, but some of them still came out by the skin of their teeth. So Carol says, I'm a bit confused when she asked where I was born, then where was my mother residing when I was born? Not sure how that made a difference. I think the reason why they're asking that question, Carol, is to ascertain in a roundabout way what your immigration status is. So
think about it this way, Sandra. Let's say that you were born in the Cayman Islands because your mother was visiting from Jamaica, Honduras, Nicaragua, some other country. doesn't mean that she was living in the Cayman Islands when you were born. So I believe that might be trying to identify how many people might have been born in the Cayman Islands who were born from someone who was just visiting, as opposed to was actually
I
on a
think
work
it's just
permit
trying to
or,
figure out your
or
immigration
a
status.
Caymanian.
Yeah. And I mean, although your immigration status might now be, maybe Carol has Caymanian status, for example, right? But if your mother, because that's, how they're going to look at who you're for, sort of thing. If your mother was not a Caymanian, then they know that you're someone who's in most instances required status through, other means other than by birthright. And when I say birthright, I mean lineage, like historical lineage. So I think that's why they're trying to ask the question. And Carol, people get confused because I saw this in the women's group. I think it was just yesterday. Someone was saying something about why is it that they can't accept a birth certificate as proof of your citizenship? And we're like, if you know anything about immigration, your passport nor your birth certificate prove that you're Caymanian, because you can be born in the Cayman Islands and have no right or entitlement to being a Caymanian whatsoever. Just because, like Kevin said, your mom was visiting here on holiday and you were born here, that doesn't mean. And then the person's like, yeah, but you can also see where the parents are from. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean it either. I mean, the immigration law has been so quirky and so disjointed over the years in terms of what is defined as a Caymanian and how you get there, that those are not the markers. That's why bona fide Caymanians who are third, fourth, and fifth generation still need an acknowledgement letter, which is crazy. So Soka says it makes my face look smaller and rounder too. Does it? Okay. Damien says anyone born between 1981 and 1996, so ages 23 to 38 in 2009, is considered a millennial. I'm a hybrid. I'm between, I'm not a millennial, but there is a hybrid group where I'm not quite I'm in between. So I have some characteristics, I think, of the younger group, especially when it comes to technology and that sort of stuff. And then, because of my age, I would still be categorized as being a little bit in the other group. Rocky is saying that there's a rumor of somebody being found dead in West Bay. We don't know if it's true or not because I've not heard the rumor. I know nothing about it. Yes.
So to address Soka Phillips' comment, Kevin's co-worker, yes, that was my boss and who I call Big Sister, my co-workers who are in the Public Health Preparedness Division, who was on a few nights ago, said masks are for protecting others rather than protecting yourself. I disagree that it's not protective of me, even more so. So to make it extremely clear, the mask does offer you some protection, but the primary protection is for other people. What the mask does, it's going to, especially we're talking about the mask, not the respirators, what medical people wear, where it's the N95 mask and those who are properly fit tested for something to not have anything out or in. So what the mask does primarily, it's more effective to protect other people from something you might have. It collects that much better when you exhale, when you speak, when you cough, when you sneeze. It doesn't give you 100% protection, but it does offer a decent amount of protection from taking something you might have to someone else. However, if someone else has something, that it also can also assist in trapping some of the stuff that you might inhale. But it does a better job at stopping stuff from going out from you, but it doesn't do a great job or as a good a job, if I could use some nice poor grammar, to get it, stop something from coming into you. So it does offer some protection to you, but ultimately it offers better protection to someone else. And if everyone is wearing a mask like they're supposed to be wearing their mask, especially when they're around others and even more so indoor settings, that's going to, again, have a domino effect. It's going to increase the chances of someone not getting exposed. It's going to decrease the chance of you taking that yuck that you might have, that you might not even know you have, because you might just sneeze for whatever reason, and you might have something that you don't know you even have, and it's going to trap that or reduce the amount of what you might put out to get to someone else. So if everyone is doing that, it's ultimately going to reduce the chance of the virus being spread out there. So that's why masks are being recommended. again, people
Yeah.
those who want to
it has. Yeah, I mean, to Soka's point, if everybody's protecting other people, then we're all protecting each other. So in the end, you end up getting protected too, because other people are protecting you by wearing their mask.
Yep.
So,
some people wanted to poke holes in it because at first the CDC wasn't talking about wearing masks and that sort of stuff. You got to understand that some of that guidance was written prior to this type of pandemic. And so they were talking about the surgical mask, and they also, again, they didn't talk to the communication folks like me. They got a bunch of data analysts that started to put out information because they're very, very technical with stuff. And so at first they were really trying to ensure that they avoided a shortage inside the PPE, the personal protective equipment, because again, those surgical masks, those N95 respirators were in very high demand with very short supply. And so they needed to ensure that the public health workers who are working to protect the public health really got that priority, as well as, I don't know if you really understand that N95 masks, not anyone should just be buying N95 masks without being fit tested. If I was to wear an N95 mask, and in fact, when I had to deal with a measles outbreak at a local college here, when I had to respond to that in my capacity, I had to shave my beard and mustache. The reason is an N95 mask you have to be fit tested. So pretty much you have to have this machine that goes on your face, and they're going to tell you what size mask, because there are different sizes to properly fitted N95 mask. It's very, very technical, and the common person, the everyday person out there is not going to be able to go through that process. So in order to actually have that best seal, that best protection, you have to go through a technical test to get the exact size, and then you have to learn how to don and doff, is what it's called, to put it on and take it off. So you're reducing the chance of spreading or getting contaminated in some way or the other. So there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that people don't quite understand. So what you have to do is somewhat broad brush it, and then afterwards try to clarify it. But if we were to put all of that information inside there all the time, do you think people are going to listen to that big old backstory? Probably not. So it got really confusing. And again, I'm going to say some of the initial guidance, it could have been better communicated. The issue is the communication people were not consulted. They were not part of helping communicate some of those messages. And this is why communication is so important. And we've learned a lot. Let's learn from the mistakes and do better.
Yeah. So there's some guidance online, folks, again, on how to, wear your mask properly. So ensure that you check those out. Soka says we're trying to find out who Anna is. When I hear I'm a Caymanian and they pronounce Caymanian, she might be like, what is that? Soka says Walmart is very strict with mask wearing, but last night about 50% of the customers had no mask on. I was quite surprised, but the governor, and then the rest of it gets cut off. So I don't know what else she said. So in terms of that rumor about somebody being found dead, nobody else has heard the rumor. So I wouldn't put too much stock in it at this particular time. So I have a parent messaging me about Little Trotters. Now on Monday, we had said that Little Trotters had at least 15 people infected at that institution, including I think 3 children. It looks like the numbers have gone up and they remain open, which as a parent, I mean, I think you have a choice to not send your child to school. So now I'm hearing that over 50% of the children have tested positive or in one class. They have 6 teachers that are positive. 18 children out of 86. Now, here's the problem that I have right here. When I saw this, 18 children out of 86, I immediately thought to myself, which is 20% basically of their students are positive. And, they've got 6 teachers out of 17 teachers positive as well. I thought, my God, you're in a school with 86 children. That's actually quite a lot for a preschool. That's a big preschool. And I didn't know that. I mean, if this is the one that I'm thinking of, this is the one that as you turn right on Walker's Road, they're right there off of South Sound. That's a lot. I had no idea they even had the physical room for 86 children at that facility, because that looks like just a small house. So if that is the case, that there's so many kids in that environment, again, it would be very, very challenging to social distance 86 children. Again, I don't know what kind of square footage we're talking about. And it's incredibly difficult to social distance small children anyway. Believe me, I've got a 5-year-old. Yesterday, I ran into a former classmate of hers, this little kid, and he wanted to run up and hug me. And his mom was like, no, 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 no. Remember, we're not supposed to be hugging people anymore. It's so hard for them to understand. They're like, what? I can't hug people. I have to wear masks. The younger they are, the more difficult it is for them to understand. So 86 children in any preschool would definitely increase the risk level. And then this parent goes on to say they had at least 3 unvaccinated teachers, and now they've finally decided they're going to get vaccinated. Listen, when we talk about vaccine mandates, I don't feel any kind of way, honey gel, about telling people who are healthcare professionals, teachers, and others that if you don't get vaccinated, you're going to be put on leave, especially when you're around people's children, because you're their protection. They can't get vaccinated. Well, that's coming here shortly, but they couldn't get vaccinated themselves. So I think it's highly irresponsible for professional teachers, whether they're professional or not, but teachers, to not get vaccinated. And that was one of the questions that I had, as we started to see community transmission reemerge of my daughter's school. I said, are all your employees vaccinated? What is your vaccine mandate if you have one? What's your vaccine policy? And at the time they said they didn't have a mandate, they didn't have a policy, but they were happy to report that all of the teachers had been responsible enough on their own to actually get vaccinated. So that was fantastic. And on top of that, anyone coming in, so they have like a music teacher that comes in once a week. They have a yoga teacher and stuff like that. All those persons are also vaccinated, and they're not allowing people to come into the school otherwise. Because somebody else messaged me about a Montessori school. I can't remember which one now, but they were saying that they say to people, if you're not vaccinated, you have to wear a mask, but then they're also not checking to see who is actually vaccinated or not. So people come in and they take their word for it, kind of thing. And I thought, that might be a problem, but I don't know how many people are coming in and out of schools anyway, because in the case of our school, you go to the front door, you drop up and pick off. You can't go inside the classroom. And so really your exposure to other children is extremely limited in that you're not around them. So quite a situation going on at Little Trotters. 50% of one class has COVID. 14 out of 28 kids are in the one class that got infected. And they're saying that really it's the staff who apparently have spread it to the children. Poor nurseries, preschools are at risk if there is a high rate of unvaccinated staff. And it appears that teachers are outside social, doing stuff outside of social activities outside of work, and they're spreading it to each other. And more importantly, they're then spreading it to the children. So a warning to other preschools of what can possibly happen.
And one of the things is once it enters a place, it's very, very hard to stomp out. So we're going to continue seeing this, and it's not going to be just Little Trotters. There are going to be other schools. Again, even though based on the data, schools are doing a pretty good job overall, there are going to be other situations where it's going to enter, and kids are going to be kids.
Yeah,
that's just it. Kids are going to be kids,
yes,
and they're going to spread it to each other. This is something that we have to really learn to live with. It's very important to reinforce from home. This is what you need to do, so we could look after each other. So if one person, if you have one person that might be slipping up, make sure your kids know to encourage them. Hey, no, remember we need to do this.
Yeah. And let's be mindful too, Kevin, that right now the infection number isn't the number the government is watching. It's actually the hospitalization number, and that will be what will dictate policy. So someone else has messaged to say that Flo and Galleria must have a positive case because they have actually closed the Galleria store for deep cleaning, and people can visit the countryside location or access them through the virtual WhatsApp store, which is 925-3569. Do stuff online, folks. Listen to me. Y'all really need to get with the program now. This is the 21st century. Stop feeling like you have to go into CUC to pay your bills every month. Stop feeling that you have to go to the water company to pay your bills. Even the insurance renewal. My husband went in there the other day, and I'm like, why are you at Cayman First, honey? He's calling me. I'm like, why are you there? We can email them. They send it by email. We can just respond by email. We can do an online payment. We can call them on the phone. They just had a positive case the other day, and some people were criticizing them for, not even telling their own staff that they had a positive case. So I'm not going into too many places. Probably one of the few places you're going to see me right now is a grocery store because I ain't got a choice. because I need to eat and I need to grocery shop. But even then, I'm trying to be in and out real quick.
And so, with some of the shutdowns, that's going to probably start going down over time.
Yeah.
How necessary is it to keep on closing a business or something because of a positive case? I mean, yes, there is a risk, but at the same time, the high touch surfaces is the primary things that people need to really start wiping things down a lot more. Maybe have reallocate some staff.
Open the windows if you can.
Yeah, open windows if possible. Make sure that doors are being wiped down frequently. But in terms of shutting down operations each and every time you have a positive case,
it's soon gonna not happen.
It's a little bit of an overreaction.
This concept of deep cleaning, like a lot of people are even confused about that because people keep asking me, what does that entail? They don't even know.
It's your high touch surfaces.
Magdalene says,
your doorknobs.
I think closer to the Adventist school. Where is that? I don't know where that is then. Oh, is that the one across from the Oh, I think I'm confusing it for real. Is that the one that's across from what's the car repair place on Walker's Road? Is that Little Trotters?
Vamp Motors is what you're thinking of. So Little Trotters
is Little Trotters across from there?
No, that's not Little Trotters. Little Trotters you can't see from the roadside. You can't see from Walker's Road. You actually have to turn down the road, and it's almost embedded into a neighborhood. There's some apartments, two-story apartments that's on the left-hand side. You got to go down that road to the end, make a right, and then it's really kind of a hidden gem, to be honest, because it's
not off the main road then.
It's not off the main road. That's a different school that is right off the main road. Little Trotters, again, it's not a huge building, but it kind of goes further back, and it does have a lot of kids that do attend there. A lot of younger ones do go to that school. It's also embedded with a little bit of a farm. They have, I think, a pig and a bunch of other little animals because they're very big into that sort of thing where teaching children how to farm. It's a very nice little school. That's back there. I've been there. Had a couple of friends that used to work there. I don't think they work there anymore. It's kind of a hidden gem and off the main road. It's just you can't see it from the main road. You have to go down the street, and I don't remember the name of the street to get there.
So Chris says that people from Cayman be sending her money to go pay their bills in the U.S. She's like, nope, you got to go online and get it done. Y'all need to take advantage, good folks, of the online options. And someone was just asking me about the What's Up for PC. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. I don't think we have anybody on tomorrow. The Reopen Cayman people may be coming on. I haven't got confirmation from them as yet. But what we'll do tomorrow is normally Thursdays is like Tech Thursday. We'll just scoot it along to Tech Fridays. And maybe tomorrow I'll show you guys a couple little tech tips and tricks that you can utilize. And I'll put that on the list. An online bill payment, folks, get an account. Shout out to CNB. Go to CNB. They have a new app, which I don't really have access to yet because I do business. I have like a business account and they haven't unveiled the app for that yet, but it's coming. So, you've got apps, you've got online access. They will help you because like the other day, I accidentally locked myself out of my account because I forgot I changed the password and then whatever. They're there to help you, pick up a phone call. You can call, even if you don't want to do it online, call and pay with your debit card. There are other ways, folks, that you can limit your exposure and need to, be out and about. So Charles says Little Trotters is on Columbus Way by Whitaker's
That is
apartment.
correct. That's the name of the street. Whitaker's apartment is the two-story apartment complex that I was talking about on the left-hand side of when you turn on Columbus Way and you go down to the end and you hang the right, just follow the road around.
I need to go. I don't think I know. I don't have a visual of where it is. So I think I need to go and have a look. But Jerry says, I think Kevin is talking about Tiny Tots. No, I think he knows what Little Trotters is. Because Tiny Tots doesn't have a farm.
Completely different place, yeah.
Yeah. All right, folks. So thank you. Soka says, yeah, this deep cleaning, what are they doing? Getting a bottle of alcohol and spraying the room and wiping down community touched areas. COVID is not surviving on surfaces as it needs a live host. Well, it is more of an airborne concern. And, on our show, this has been said over and over and over again. So if you've not gotten it yet, surface cleaning, you should try to keep your surfaces clean anyway. Because viruses,
a lot of different things, not just COVID.
Yeah, exactly. But when we're talking about when we're talking about COVID, airborne, particles in the air. You walk through that. You're in the same communication area with people who are talking to you, just breathing even. And, it gets into you that way. All right, good folks. Thank you so much. Rick, I don't know what that comment is about. You want us to cover VPN? What does that have to do with things that would be useful to you? I was thinking more useful in terms of like COVID and stuff like that. Perla says, no online payment is easier, but I'm afraid of hackers to take my money from my account. Maybe we can talk about some online safety tips with your bank accounts and stuff like that as well. You know what? I'm going to reach out to CNB and see if they want to come online. They're my bank and I love them to death. So maybe we'll have a word with them to see if they want to give people some tips and tricks on how to be safe online. Password, having a good password is very, very important, folks. And the other thing I do is I have an account that is my debit card is linked to, and I use that a lot for like Amazon online purchases. I don't keep money in that account unless I'm about to do a transaction. So if somebody be trying to take money, they're not gonna get much unless they know the exact moment that I'm about to make a transaction. So literally I go to Amazon and say I'm gonna make, especially if it's a larger purchase, I have everything in my cart and I look at the total and then I go and transfer the money from another account to the debit card account, and I do the transaction within 50 minutes. So that money is depleted right back out. So anybody trying to steal money from me is probably only going to get a couple dollars. There's a tip for you. There are ways to do it and be safe. All right, good folks. Thank you guys so much. I know we went a little bit into overtime. I do want to go to court this morning because we are monitoring the Tortuga robbery case. It has went from a jury case to a judge only. That was interesting that the switch was made after it was delayed the last time. So we're going to be keeping an eye on what's happening with that case. Not saying a whole lot because you know what happened last time. We'll talk about it actually after the case is over. And so we definitely want to keep you guys informed and abreast of the outcome of that case, which I think is what everybody really wants to hear. And the defense, because I'm interested to hear the defense put forward what they have to. All right, good folks, all of you on WhatsApp and in the conversations here. Thank you for joining us this morning. Kevin is up this evening at 7 o'clock. Kevin, tell us what you've got going on.
Absolutely. So tonight's hopefully we have no technical issues because we know you're still working through some of them. But we're going to be listening to, again, you saw some samples of the Tampa General Hospital workers kind of sharing their experiences behind the scenes. We're going to spend the first part of the show listening to them, and then we're going to move into a conversation where if you have questions for an emergency room doctor, Dr. Charles Sand will be on, and he's going to share with you some tips on what you might have regarding to COVID. So it's really about you asking your questions. I'll have a few to kind of start it off, but then we really want this to be very engaging. If you have any questions about COVID, he's an emergency room physician that will be able to answer some of your questions. So please, again, share. I put it inside the chat, but we'll share it again. Please share the link with everyone so they could watch the previous shows, as well as tune in tonight at 7 o'clock so you could watch and please participate in the show, where if you have any questions, you have access to a doctor to be able to answer some of your questions. And so that's what's on tonight.
All right, folks. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Kevin, we will see you a bit later on. I actually won't be here, but we'll have you here. So I'm going to go to a little event, and thank you guys so much. Rick, creating a VPN account will help with Cayman IP addresses to be so. I'm not sure why you need that to pay bills, though. I thought we were talking about bill payment. But anyway, we can certainly discuss it tomorrow. Not a problem. Kevin, have a beautiful day. Thank you for hanging out with us this morning. Everyone. Certainly appreciate it. All right, folks, that's it. Another episode of The Cold Hard Truth under a belt. Y'all have a lovely, lovely day. Be safe, and we'll see you this evening at 7 o'clock, and then tomorrow morning, God's willing, at 7:30.
I'm ready to reopen Cayman because it's time that our friends, family, and tourists are able to come once again and visit our beautiful island.
When we open up the borders, travel is going to be freer and we're going to be able to travel between countries better.
I'm ready to reopen to be reunited with my loved ones living abroad.
I'm ready to reopen.
Ho, ho, ho!
It's that time of year again. Christmas is right around the corner, and you do not want to delay. Because of COVID-19, there are numerous logistics delays expected. Give yourself the gift of a true Christmas miracle by planning ahead with Miracle Brokers. Whether you're moving halfway around the world or ordering a new car for your loved one, contact Miracle today at 949-5989. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of The Cold Hard Truth. Make sure to check Facebook for showtimes and more information and the latest news at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Subscribe to our IG and Facebook pages to get the latest happenings.